Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Women in Engineering and Technology. My name is Amanda Thomson. I'm the MD of Campus Media and the founder. Campus Media is a company that supports and works with students and institutions as well as employers to help bring about free events like this one today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's fantastic to have a live audience here at London South Bank University, as well as such a large virtual audience online as well joining us. So for those of you that are joining us virtually, please, there is a link on the page if you're on the Campus Media website, and we're posting it in the chat now as well. If you would like to pop the window out so you can view it larger, please do that. The chat box as well will also be larger on there, just for ease of following the event. And all of our employers who are here with us today as well will be in the chat. Some of them may already be starting to introduce themselves. Please say hi, ask your questions. This is a very interactive event. We want to hear your questions all the way through the event. And after our speakers have finished, if we have time for any questions straight after, we will, of course, ask those for you as well, or we'll come back to them during the panel discussion. So over the next 3.5 hours, we have got an afternoon packed full of inspiring keynote speakers. We have got professional development workshops, and we have interactive panel discussions all taking place. Again, please interact, please send in your questions. It's great to hear your thoughts as well and comments. And we've got a couple of polls taking place as well throughout the event, so look out for those. Our employers are going to be giving you their whistle-stop tours of what it's like within their organisations, their application processes, and any hints and tips that they can offer as well. And we have got some scheduled breaks in there as well. So if you need to take a comfort break, we've got 2 breaks scheduled throughout the event itself. We've also got a competition coming up during that time. Just quickly to add, if you have come across the event and you've not already registered and would like to engage with employers after the event, please scroll down to the bottom of the page or check in the chat box for a link to where you can register. So I want to start today's session really not on the negatives, not saying only 16% of women work in the engineering industry. Only 3% of women choose tech as their first choice on graduating. Instead, I want to talk about the positives. So this is our 7th event of Women in Engineering and Technology. And the difference from where we were 7 years ago to where we are today is really stark. The improvements I've seen from the employer's side and also the number of students joining events like this is really positive and really encouraging. So I want to just reflect really on why that might be the case. So this year we've had more registrations than ever to attend this event. This morning we were over 1,500, which is huge. When we first started the event in 2017, we had 150 students, and it was really difficult to try and find those women studying the engineering and technology degrees to attend the event. This year, we've been overwhelmed by the number of students that wanted to attend the event in person, and thanks to LSBU, who we'll be hearing from shortly, we've been able to facilitate that. But thanks to COVID, we are able to facilitate everybody joining us virtually as well and not missing out on any of the interaction or advice that we're able to share today. So Also, one thing that we've realised is there's more women studying STEM degrees and qualifications now than what there were 7 years ago. There's more diversity in the types of STEM courses that you can study at universities, and I'm sure Suela will talk about that as well in a minute. There's one of the big issues we have here in the UK is within the primary and secondary school education system, we don't talk about the word engineering. I have 3 young children and they're all at primary school. They know what the word engineering means because I talk about it a lot at home, but it's not traditionally taught in the classrooms. So we have a huge disconnect here in the UK of finishing secondary school or A-levels or college and then going on to your further choices if you've not already been exposed to the world of engineering or technology. So there's a huge disconnect there. Now, over the years, we've been working with lots of fabulous organisations, and we're going to be joined today by STEMAZING, who is just one of them, who work tirelessly with schools, primary and secondary, to deliver inspiring, proactive activity STEM sessions in the classroom to talk about what different types of careers you can do within the STEM industry. And we're going to be hearing from Jessica about STEMAZING as well. And it's thanks to companies like that that are breaking down these barriers in primary and secondary school, which means there's more students coming through university now knowing, actually, I want to do an engineering degree, I want to do a technology degree. So it is filtering through. And this just simply wasn't there 7 years ago. I also want to point out, when we were promoting today's event, you will have received lots of emails from us, surely, but we've been working with the clubs and societies, as well as the academics at universities across the whole of the UK. When we first started doing this, there was probably about 100 societies that were STEM-related, and very, very few of them were women STEM-related societies. This year, we have been in contact with over 500 societies at the universities across the UK that are STEM-related, and a huge proportion of them are women-focused STEM societies, which is a massive change from how it was, again, 7 years ago. There are also more events like this happening, especially at this time of the year. How many of you have already attended STEM events or careers events for STEM, which is fantastic to see. Again, there's more and more of this happening. Universities themselves are running their own STEM and Women in STEM careers events as well, which is fantastic. Again, this wasn't a thing 7 years ago. So there's huge improvements being made every year. And we've also had more men register to attend this year's event than ever before, which is absolutely fantastic, because you are going to be brilliant allies for your female colleagues when you're in the workplace. But more importantly, it shows that you want to work in an organisation that values diversity and wants gender parity within the STEM industry as well. And before I head off, I just want to share this slide. So this is a quick snapshot from some of the employers' websites who are here today, who you'll hear from today, who on their careers websites have got positive female role models on their websites. This is massively important. Again, 10 years ago, these women weren't on the websites, and the issue we have is you can't be what you can't see. Now there are so many positive female role models on websites, joining events like this, visiting your universities to talk to you about how fantastic their role is and what it's like to work within that industry as a woman. So that's enough from me. You will be hearing from me on and off throughout the event, but I would like to introduce now Dr. Suela Kellici, who works here at London South Bank University and is our fabulous host for today.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure seeing so many of you here today. Thank you for attending this event, and thank you to Campus Media for bringing us all together. A warm welcome to every one of you here today, and to celebrate and to exchange knowledge for Women in Engineering and Technology event here at LSBU. So I am very proudly standing here, delighted to be here representing LSBU, which actually is not only a university, is a beacon for innovation and research and education. So we offer plenty of courses in terms of the engineering. We are nestled, as you've seen when you came around, because I know we have students from all over UK, which is fantastic. We nestled here right in the vibrant city of London. We have access to lots of various things, and above all, we have access in what LSBU is offering. It offers great choices in terms of continue a career in engineering. We study chemical and energy engineering, electronic engineering, we have computer science, and also we do have mechanical engineering. So our master students, they are continue to study in great depth knowledge, but also we have great PhD programs. So for those of you that want to continue in research, you want to tackle global challenges, and that is another alternative route for you, and actually LSBU is offering. So this means from designing advanced materials for various applications, to engineering, to solving global challenges as energy storage or making solar fuel, to artificial intelligence. These are the things that LSBU offer, and these are the things that women engineer can do, can tackle, and offer a solution to major global challenges. So the event here is an opportunity for us to network. And please, you know, around we have a student, a PhD student that's going to sit here during the network event and also during the panel session. So feel free to talk, to network, to discuss, you know, the routes and to discuss the research they are doing here at LSBU. But also we have, I'm very proud of a rich history of LSBU. We started 1892, but very proudly, we've been teaching women in engineering for more than 100 years. We were one of the first universities to introduce engineering and take women into the engineering programs. And we take pride of that. We continue our commitment, and that means that more women come into our programs. We nurture them, and we provide them guidance and greater depth knowledge, so when they become or leave LSBU, they are our future engineers. They tackle on challenges and provide solution and provide alternative routes to society and benefit to all of us. So I want to extend a special thank you to our employers for attending here today. It just shows that their diversity and inclusion and the more routes to go and to become an engineer. Is a special thank you to all our professional teams here at LSBU for making this event such a smooth transition. So this is from the booking team to the estates, to security, to the dean of the school, and also to the provost, that they were proud to have all of you and also people that attend virtually to see and to network and to exchange every information today. So for all these women engineers that pave the way for you to continue the route and become engineers. So I also would like to thank the student that they have supporting, the student ambassador. We see them around. Again, during the network event, feel free to talk to them and discuss the alternative routes. So to all the students that are here and the students online, I just want to say, please take this opportunity to network, take full advantage. Let's use this day as a motivation and have a good memory for the future, and also you can make a good network and good continuous and work with the employers and see an alternative route to your career. So thank you very much. Thank you to Campus Media, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, Suela. That was really lovely put. And thank you again for having us. We wouldn't be here without the support of LSBU. So moving very swiftly on to our first keynote speakers, and we have two organisations, Network Rail and VolkerRail, who will be talking about the rail industry. And our first keynote speaker is Nilda Sanchez from Network Rail.
Excellent. Good afternoon all. I'm very, very delightful of being here, so thank you so much for the organizer. It's the first time I'm participating in this kind of event, so I'm very happy. And I hope you enjoy as well. So, a little bit about myself. Normally, I'm not used to see my slides so big, so bear with me in this one. My name is Nilda Sanchez. I'm a very passionate and motivated senior engineer. I'm coming from a little bit of my background. I'm coming from Venezuela. This is South America. My background, I'm an electrical engineer, and I have a master's degree in power system. My career started in the oil and gas industry, and later on in offshore. Rail industry, I joined to Network Rail back in 2017, and my first role was a project engineer delivering projects for EMP, which is a specific electrification and plan, and in the specific regions that are now known as the Northwest Central and Eastern regions. Later on, I moved on as a senior engineer to technical authority, which is the current role I have at the moment. But I also had the opportunity of being in a secondment as a senior asset engineer in the Eastern region. This one was for about 10 months, almost a year. Very good experience. Parallel to all of this, I am EDI champion, which is Equality, Diversity and Inclusion champion. I am also Everyone Home Safe Everyday champion, which is our safety vision as a company. I am a STEM ambassador, very passionate about delivering activities for all the, let's call it the new generation and the STEM subjects. I've been a member of IEEE since 2003. On my university days, I remember I led a lot of student events in the brand in my university, which I really, really enjoyed at the time. I've been a member of IET since 2015, and I am certified and registered as a charter engineer since 2016. So let's talk a little bit about Network Rail. What is Network Rail? Well, what the company does. So Network Rail is a company that owns, develops, operates, and maintains Britain railway infrastructure. We own around 22,000 miles of track. Over these 22,000 miles of track, we have around 10,000 kilometers, which is around 6,200 miles, electrified with overhead line, which is OLE. We have around 4,500 kilometers, which is around 2,800 miles, with conductor rail, third rail. And we own around 30,000 bridges, tunnels, and viaducts. Parallel to this, we own and manage 20 stations. We used to move around 4.8 million of people. This one is pre-pandemic figures, and this one was in a daily journey. Currently, we are around 42,000 employees. And do you have an idea of, over these 42,000 employees in percentage, how much percent do we have in females within the company? Give me a number, a percentage. I say 5%. Any other one? 50%? Okay, getting close. We have around 19% of females in our workforce. That's the reality today. So as you can imagine, managing the infrastructure takes a huge, varied and diverse workforce, and there is a lot of work that needs to be done. For decades, railway has been a male-dominated industry, but we're determined to change this. Our strategy in Network Rail has been focused in changing attitudes, creating that equality, diverse, and inclusion culture, addressing systematic practice, behaviors, and removing all the barriers. We have different internal projects and initiatives that is increasing this diversity within the business. Network Rail has a huge varieties of engineering options. I work in electrification and plant, which is EMP, specific in the traction power distribution, which is the part I'm more passionate about it. However, there are other disciplines like plant, OLE, conductor rail, civil, structure, mechanical, signaling, you name it. We have a great apprenticeship and graduate scheme that is not only focused on the engineering side, obviously I'm more biased on the engineering field, but we also offer finance, section planning, health and safety, technicians, commercial, procurement, and project management. Engineering and STEM subjects will open the door for you, and you will have the opportunities of making real changes that, to be honest, are opportunity for everyone, as long as you are interested in this, and you are embraced to embrace the challenge. So my question to you is, why not? Network Rail is a large company, and I'm very, very proud of working on it. If you're interested in making, as I say, real changes, in supporting a huge organization and have tangible results that will be impacted in Britain, railway infrastructure, come to have a chat with me. I'm pretty sure that Network Rail can open the door for you in the same way it has done it for me, and you will have a career opportunity. Thank you so much. And I will pass to the following keynote. There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cecilia Hansen-Saunders. I'm a commercial director at VolkerRail. So VolkerRail are a principal contractor for Network Rail and other clients who own part of railway infrastructure like Transport for London or Transport for Wales or other private companies that have railway. I thought I'd talk a little bit about what is a bit of a winding career. This starts a little bit after when I started. We work in the railway, so we like to see tracks as much as possible, just to remind everyone. But it's not to indicate how loopy it's gone. But really, what the railway industry has given me is an opportunity to find something that I enjoy doing, to work with a wide range of people, covering all kinds of disciplines. And I'd probably say that by thinking of something like the railway as an engineering profession, if there's something you're passionate about, you can probably find a place for you, irrespective of what you study or the specific career path that you're thinking of now. So if we look, I came to the UK in about 2000. I'm from Denmark originally, and I didn't actually start in the railway. I was doing various roles here and there. I actually temped in a railway company, and they went, oh, you'll do, you can stay around for a while, and then sponsored me through a degree. So I know all of you will probably be doing your degrees already, but there is that kind of opportunity as well to do a degree through work. I started really looking at commercial specifically from about 2009, did my degree, went from QS to senior QS, and then commercial manager and so on. What I did for these different companies has worked on projects. So for example, at Amy Colas, we did track renewals. So obviously the track is used every day and needs to be changed and renewed. So that was what all of our projects did. It's a constant renewal scheme because everything's expiring at some point. When I moved over to ABC and Alstom, I worked on electrification projects. So that was when we were first putting in overhead line electrification that Nilda talked about. That's obviously part of a sustainability agenda in the UK to do away with fossil fuels and to make our transport systems more environmentally friendly. I worked within signaling systems, so those are complex systems. You have all kinds of skills needed for that, from technology and computing to design, engineering, systems, you name it, it's in there really. At Balfour Beatty, I worked on projects in Wales and also looked at projects for HS2. So you get involved in some pretty big schemes, really, that hit the news maybe sometimes when you don't want them to, but we'll ignore that for a minute. And then recently, from about February 2023, so this year, I joined VolkerRail as a commercial director. And what I wanted to show you is just a few of the amazing women that I work with. And you can see from those titles that probably don't give you half an idea of the kind of roles that are available. If there's something that you're passionate about, you can find a place. So we have Caroline, who's here in the audience today, and Malika, you know, who look at, Malika's in our engineering department, and Caroline has all of our social value. Tina helped us organize today. She works in media. You can see Zoe up there, who works for me. Jackie Kennedy is one of my counterparts in commercial. And I think what I'd like to hopefully get out of today for you is to give you an appreciation of just how many opportunities there are. We talk about, oh, it's a male-dominated industry, but it means that your presence can make a big difference. Thankfully, today looks nothing like it looked 10 years ago, nothing like it looked 20 years ago and before my time, but I'm sure nothing like it looked 30 or 40 years ago. And I hope that that inspires you to consider your role in the railway and definitely within engineering in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cecilia and Nilda. It is really encouraging to actually hear those stats and see so many women within roles. And I know a lot of you from these organisations are supporting us here today as well, which is fantastic. I would like to introduce our next speaker now, Jessica McCafferty, who is here today representing STEMAZING. I'm not sure if any of you followed the event last year, but we ran a STEMAZING competition, and we'll be running the same one again this year. And so you will have the opportunity to enter this competition, but Jessica is going to talk to you now about her experience on the programme and why it's so important to be a visible role model.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me today. It's really great to be here. So, 2 years ago, I could not have imagined standing in front of an audience, both virtual and real life. I'd lacked self-confidence, I'd taken a bit of a hit joining engineering, and I don't know, I just lost my mojo really. So, I'm going to talk to you today about how through the Inspiration Academy, it kind of helped me to start the journey to where I am today, which is standing in front of you guys. So I'm Jessica McCafferty, and I work in the intersection between engineering and technology. Thank you. In a small company that works in energy from waste. So throughout school and my education, I did an environmental science degree. I was quite fortunate in that it was either a predominantly female-dominated environment or very, very kind of equal split. Then when I ended up in my engineering role, which was kind of a accident, you can talk to me about that later, I was kind of hit with the reality of what being a woman in engineering was. I joined a company that had 5 women and over 100 men, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, to put it quite frankly. The story will get more inspirational, don't worry. So let's have a look at the bigger picture at the moment. Sorry, I'm not very good at putting my slides at the same time. So, as you're probably all aware, we have a problem with retention in STEM, with people, men and women, getting into STEM, and also a diversity issue. So, as you've all heard, 16% of women in the engineering, there's only 16% of women in the engineering workforce, and that number gets even more shocking when you take into different intersectionality. A huge barrier to this is the lack of role models. This impacts both the youngest of children, so the primary school age, even pre-primary school age, and also to students like yourself, kind of starting university, coming towards the end of the university career. We need more women out there talking about what their roles are in STEM, but it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, really. There aren't that many women in STEM there aren't that many women in STEM, which means there aren't that many women in STEM out there talking about what they do, showing you that women can be in STEM. That means that there's fewer women or fewer girls going through STEM education, going into the STEM workforce, which again reduces the number of women out there talking about STEM. So as I say, a bit of a chicken and egg. It really means that we have a responsibility as women in STEM to kind of go out there and be visible role models, whether we want to or not, quite frankly. So it's quite scary though, standing in front of hundreds of people, standing in front of a class of 30 kids running around. You're not sure if they're actually listening to you. You could be the most boring thing they've ever heard of. But this is where the STEMAZING Inspiration Academy has come in and provides an opportunity for women, free of charge, to learn and to gain the confidence to go and be a visible role model. So I will play a video just to introduce you to the Inspiration Academy a bit more. So the eagle-eyed of you may have noticed me in the bottom right-hand corner of the photo mosaic. So I took part in the Inspiration Academy about 2 years ago, and through the academy I met a network of women who I didn't really have in my job because, as I said, it was kind of less than 5% female, and realised that a lot of the beliefs that I had about myself as a woman in STEM and a lot of the experiences that I had were shared experiences. And the things that some of the other women were saying about themselves that sounded ridiculous, like I'm not good enough to be an engineer, I realised were the same ridiculous thoughts that were coming out of my own mouth. I had a chance to talk to other women in STEM, and honestly it was the feeling of not being alone that really, really helped me on the journey to be here today. My passion for volunteering was rekindled through the Inspiration Academy. When I was at school, I used to do a lot of STEM kind of volunteering through schools, mentoring, that kind of stuff. That got lost along the way, joining kind of the real world, really, but this helped bring it back. And this year I did 50 STEM ambassador hours, which is, alongside a full-time job, is quite a challenge, but loved every hour of it. It's honestly, it's great fun. So being a visible role model can have really, really great impact on our own lives. The amount of opportunities I've had because of becoming more visible have been astounding, really, today being one of those. I gained the confidence to ask employers for what I wanted, so I managed to, but the current job I've got, when I joined it, I managed to get my contract to allow me to have voluntary hours. I spoke to my last employer and I got them to sponsor 3 women through the Inspiration Academy. I wouldn't have said boo to a goose 3 years ago, honestly, so to do that was actually a massive change for me. The Inspiration Academy taught that it was fear that was holding me back. Understandable fear, given how women are kind of brought up in society to play their own achievements down, to kind of just be helpful, be kind, all those things. So the fears of being embarrassed, the fear of being shamed, the fear of being told you're not good enough, the fear of being told you're bragging too much are founded, really. But the Inspiration Academy gives you the tool set and the network to think, oh, hold on, actually, despite what every society is telling me, I can be something. I can change things for future generations. We also learn kind of coping techniques for physiological responses that come as part of being scared. So probably see it here, shaking hands. You learn, okay, might feel like fear, but actually I'm probably just excited. So honestly, a really worthwhile opportunity to take part of. And don't get me wrong, it hasn't fixed everything. The limiting beliefs still creep in, but I know that I now have a support network around me. I have tools to overcome whatever I'm kind of telling myself. And a really important point is there's a lot that we can't change in the world. There's a lot that we can't control, but something that we can take ownership and accountability of is what we do for our own personal development and our own confidence. So I really encourage you to champion yourself, champion others, take part in the competition, get part of the Inspiration Academy, and ultimately be who you could be. So thank you very much, everyone, for having me here today. I'm not sure if I'm on time or not. Yeah, I'll say, if you want to talk to me afterwards about the Inspiration Academy, I'll be in the networking event later, and I'm on the chat as well for those on the internet if you want to ask me any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jess. Do you know what? Nobody here today is a professional speaker. We are all pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones. And if we don't, there will be fewer visible role models to inspire the next generation. So you are all role models within this room, whether you think it or not, you are. Thank you, Jess. I'd like to invite everybody for our graduate panel discussion now to go and take their seats. Yep, please go ahead. And we'll be moving straight into the panel discussion. So please send your questions in for us to ask the panel. So, quick change. I feel like I'm dotting all over the place. I'm joined by some graduates, some recent, not so recent graduates as well, who work at the following companies that you can see on the screen. We have, and they will all take some time to introduce themselves. But this session is really for you to ask your questions about their journey, what they did, what would they do different perhaps, how they found their company when they first started and so on. So if you could all just introduce yourself, it'd be great to know what you studied as a degree or qualification and the role that you're doing now for the company that you're in.
Hello, everybody. Is that a good distance, hopefully? Hi, I'm Sophie Lupton. I am a technology graduate currently at Virgin Media O2, telecoms company, if you haven't heard of us. I started that last September, which has gone by very quickly. So I hope you're all looking forward to hopefully joining some graduate schemes. Prior to that, I did biomedical engineering at the University of Reading. So a bit different background, you might notice, but I really wanted to work on more general engineering skills and look into research and development. So during my time at university, I decided to look for a year in industry that would focus on developing those skills. And that's when I found the technology internship scheme with Virgin Media. So after joining that, I had such a good time that I came back on the graduate scheme. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Izzy Hannah. I'm a graduate at VolkerRail. I was originally in the telecoms engineering graduate scheme. This is following my degree, which was in electrical and information sciences. So there's a bit of follow-on. But I've now moved on to an asset data role in the high-speed line.
Hi, I'm Angela Tillotson. I'm a sub-lieutenant in the Royal Navy in the weapons engineering branch. I'm a recent graduate from Newcastle University where I studied electrical and electronic engineering. I'm really happy to talk to you today about life in the Navy and the graduate schemes that we have to offer, if you have any questions.
You've already met me, but I'm Jessica McCafferty. I'm here representing STEMAZING, but my full-time job is in energy from waste, kind of developing software for the asset management and owners and operators to use. I'm a less recent graduate, graduating in 2015, so I've had a few different roles now in the 8 years since graduating. I did an environmental science degree. I went to an all-girls school where engineering was never mentioned, so it kind of never entered my sphere, really. I just, as I said, I accidentally found my way into engineering. I have lots that I do differently from my 8 years, so yeah, I think I have some good answers for that bit.
Great, thank you. So, whilst we're waiting for the questions to come in, it would be really interesting to know what your first impressions were coming out of academia and straight into the graduate programme or the scheme that you were on. And we'll start with Sophie.
Perfect. I think because I did the year in industry, that was during my university time, it was a really good insight straight into the world of work. And they are quite different, at least my experience of that. But the corporate world compared to university, it's obviously a lot more structured. But then our company, Virgin Media O2, is very flexible. So it gave you a lot more independence than I anticipated. But I actually personally really loved the jump and the difference that it made, because I quite like structure, and university for me, obviously, you're quite self-independent, kind of organising your own time, whereas actually coming to work and kind of having projects to work on, getting that experience and being able to drop everything at 5 o'clock, 5:30, and just think, I'm not being paid for these hours. I can relax properly, whereas you don't obviously have that at uni. You're putting in as much work as possible. But I found the experience really good personally. I really like the world of work a bit more than university, because I still get to learn on the side as well. There's a lot of time for learning and development as well. So yeah, good experience overall.
I would say that the biggest learning curve for me, leaving academia and starting in LSBU, is just how much broader engineering is than maybe I realized at university, and how different the roles can be, and how teams need to work together in a way that I hadn't quite explored at university. I think I was quite theoretical at uni. It was like, how does this work? How do I get this to work? Whereas when you go into work, it's more about project management, asset ownership, and how to develop systems so that works properly. So that was quite a different skill from uni, I would say.
So I had a slightly different jump from university into work, because I was in a scheme where the military supported me through university and through sixth form college. So we would have weekly meetups whilst at uni, where I'd meet up with people that were on the same scheme as me, that were going in the same direction as me. And I was provided opportunities through university to take part in adventurous training and leadership training that were outside of my academic studies. So when I moved on to joining the Navy and going into training, there was people there that I already knew, and I already had a good insight into what I was going to be doing, and then the training supports you really well through using your academic experience and also putting that into the leadership side that we develop in the Navy.
So, as I alluded to in my previous talk, I actually found the jump from academia to kind of a very male-dominant industry quite difficult. I had about 20 dads who would make sure I was okay going out on site. Do your hair up, Jess. Don't fall over. Like, yes, Dad. But actually, the jump from academia to work made me realise how important the soft skills are that I don't think are kind of touched on enough in engineering and technology. It's all kind of the theoretical. But actually, being able to talk to people, being a nice person, being able to read the room is really important, and can actually get you quite a long way. Even if, like me, you don't necessarily have the engineering background, you're still a very valuable person on a team and very capable of doing whatever.
Thank you. So I'm quite intrigued. I know every year that we've been doing these events, we always get lots of questions coming in from students who are studying a particular type of degree that feel because they didn't study something very specialist, they can't then go on to a scheme because their degree wasn't centred around that. How much of your role is what your degree was based on?
I think I'm quite a good candidate to ask this, as that is my degree sounds really different to what I do, and I think I have had it a couple of times where I've said my degree and people are like, oh, how come you're here? There's so much you get from studying a degree and a lot of the skills that you learn are so transferable. I actually learned that the biomedical engineering side, so that's engineering applied to healthcare, for anyone that doesn't know. But there was a lot that actually applied to networks and fibre optics that I didn't necessarily anticipate before. I think the biomedical engineering side of things were my passion, but I wanted to try something different, and that's not a bad thing. And the amount of skills that you gain just from doing a degree, dissertation, or just learning in modules, if you've got that willingness to learn, you'll be perfectly fine joining a graduate scheme that might be slightly different, and there will most likely be overlap that you might not have anticipated. But yeah, if you want to know more, you can feel free to ask after.
So I did a general engineering degree to begin with. It wasn't specialised in electrical, so I did mechanical, civil, electrical, everything. And then I went on to do telecoms. So I actually hadn't done a lot of the stuff that was covered in my graduate scheme, and I didn't really know a lot of the equipment that we used or the systems. I didn't even know about IP really. But they've put a lot of effort into teaching me this stuff. No one expects you to come in and just know everything immediately. People will put time, especially at work, because they work with you. They want you to know what you're talking about. So they will put time into helping you, and they'll point you towards the right resources, I would say.
So my job role fits quite well into what I studied. So studying electrical and electronic engineering and going into an engineering job role where my job title is weapons engineer, but aside from looking at the warfighting equipment, we also look at the sensors, so our radars and our sonars, and our communication systems, which is quite electronics based. But we do have other graduates from mechanical engineering and physics who also do equally as well. That's because the training that the Navy provides is really in depth. So I did 3 months studying engineering principles behind the equipment that we use, and that gets put into play in my role. So part of it is being the branch or the bridge between what our maintainers, so let's say something goes wrong, our maintainers come to us, and we have to then put that into terms for command, so how that affects what we can do in our performance and our output. So that's where the engineering and electrical side comes in for me. But also with the Navy, we look at a lot of management and leadership, which is what they've given me and how I've trained with them that I didn't perhaps learn in university. So along with the academics, I also have that side, which is really highly focused on in my job role.
So I really liked the point that Sophie mentioned about if you have a willingness to learn, then that can actually get you really far. Even if you don't have the same degree as what you're then doing for work, if you're curious about the job, if you're curious about the skills that you need, then that's going to take you pretty far. And similar to what Isabel said, people want to help you on the whole. If you're stuck on something, if there's a skill set you're missing, you just need to ask, you just need to explore that with people that you work with, get yourself on training schemes, and yeah, the vast majority of people are, if not everyone, are willing to help you with those kind of gaps that you might have for what you studied and what you actually need for your job role.
Brilliant, thank you. So that was really helpful, because over the last 3 months as students have been registering, and I'd just like to point out our audience today is made up of first year students, some college students as well, all the way through to postgrads and PhD students. So we've got people at all stages through their academia. And one thing that's been really amazing to see actually is the diversity of the degrees that they're studying. So much more varied now compared to 10 years ago. And there are some very, very niche degrees that our audience are studying. But again, like you, Isabel, a lot of general engineering. So I think people feel that if they're studying a certain specific type of degree, that they're then somehow pigeonholed into doing that as a career. But there is no obligation to carry that through. You studied that degree because you really loved that degree and you wanted to understand it in greater depth. But your STEM qualification can take you anywhere. So thank you for that. Sophie, you mentioned that you did a year in industry, and we've had a specific question. Was there anybody else that's done a year in industry as well? So this one's just for you then, Sophie. So what was the year in industry applications process like, and how did you decide what to go into?
I think this can be really daunting. Don't worry, I've been there. I knew I wanted to do a year in industry because I had heard about all the benefits and the skills that you've gained from one. I didn't know at all how you applied. I just kind of Googled it and hoped for the best. And I did manage to find it. So I didn't know what I wanted to do specifically. I think because my degree was quite specialised as well, there weren't that many years in industry or placement years on offer. And so I kind of hedged my bets, went for something different. And that's where I stumbled across Virgin Media O2. From looking into research and development kind of roles, I kind of looked at kind of the food space, technology. That was the sort of thing I was interested in. So I think advice for that is just kind of find something you're interested in. It doesn't have to be too specialist, and it doesn't have to necessarily be that similar to your current degree, because you might find it something that's more interesting to you. The application process, quite similar to graduate schemes in that for us, I had to send off my CV and cover letter. It was a few years ago now, so sorry if I forget. And then after that, I had a situational judgment test to complete, which kind of just to understand how you react in certain situations, get an idea of your personality. And then after I was successful with that, they were really good at keeping the process quick, which is something that I really liked about Virgin Media, former Virgin Media at the time, because it kind of kept you on the ball, and like some you'd send off applications and you wouldn't hear back for two months. So after that, I had a video assessment where I had to record some questions. They'd give some questions and I'd have to record myself answering the question. And then I had the assessment centre day. This was in person as it was before COVID. Now they are slightly different. They're virtual, where I had to do a group task, a presentation, and then the interview. So a day long, kind of 9 till 5 period. But it was actually a really good chance to meet other people applying in the process. And quite a few on the day were successful, and I still work with some of them now. So yeah, it's daunting, but use all the advice you've got around you, Google all the help that you can get. There's lots of careers advice out there, so just try and find what you can to get you in the best position for applying.
Thank you. We're sharing a microphone. I've got a question for Isabel for Network Rail. So what can female students and graduates do to prepare for a successful career at Network Rail? That's very specific.
Yeah, so I would say that because Network Rail is such a big organisation, there's a lot of opportunities that you maybe wouldn't know about otherwise. Like, for example, we do a year in industry as well, and I think there is internships. So I definitely recommend going for one of those, because the people I know who came into the graduate scheme, a lot of them had done that, and it really gave them like a huge head start on the graduate scheme, because it's a big organisation, you just need to understand everything that's going on. And there's so much set up to get started. So if you've already done a year in industry, it really makes a massive difference, I would say. Other than that, I would say it's also like a very safety-focused industry. So if you can kind of get some experience that proves an appreciation of safety and an awareness, that would be probably quite a beneficial thing to look at, as well as because it's a big infrastructure, kind of being able to look at the interface between different types of engineering as well. Between systems is also quite a big part of what we do. So any kind of experience or if you have experience, being able to link it back to that, I would say would be pretty beneficial.
Perfect, thank you. And we will be finding out more about the different schemes within the rail industry in your workshop shortly as well. Angela, I've got a question for you. So what is the onboarding process and training like within the Royal Navy? And do graduates get to mix with those who have worked there for a while, or are you all placed together within a graduate cohort?
So the application process is really simple. It's all online and virtual now. So there's a few stages to it. So initially you'll apply through the website, and then from that you'll be assigned a personal career manager who you can talk to through your whole time during the application. Then there's a few stages before that you'll get accepted. So there are some online questions, so you'll video yourself answering questions, submit that, which will be assessed. And then there's a kind of a group leadership exercise where you're faced with a problem, and as a group online on Teams or something, you solve that problem, and it's seeing who steps up as a leader, how you deal with the different problems, the different solutions. And then there's a medical phase and then a pre-joining fitness phase. But then training, so the main part of training is your phase 1, which is basically training you to be an officer in the military. So during that, you're not just engineers and you're not just graduates and you're not just new people joining the Navy, it's everybody who's going through that at once. So it's all branches, so you're mixed with the warfare team, the logistics team, even doctors and medical students will go through with you, and you're all mixed together. And then there's also our upper yardsman scheme, which are people who join the Navy as ratings and that get picked to go through as officers. So you're all mixed together. And the training is, it's challenging, but it's great fun. And the people that you're going through with are all in the exact same boat as you, so you make like friends for life. And it's so different from other jobs in that you don't just go and work 9 to 5. They're the people that you eat all your meals with. You know, you potentially share a room with them. And so the friendships that you make along the way and the relationships with your colleagues are different to any other job, I say.
Thank you. And actually the work experience, because we've got a question in about work experience, because you did the, was it the sponsored degree you did through university that you mentioned? Did that mean then that you went during a year in industry, or did you do any work experience whilst you were at university?
So while I was at uni, it was kind of a meet-up thing. So every Tuesday, we'd have 2 hours where we'd all meet up at a local base, and you'd do leadership exercises and stuff like that. But there were also opportunities for weekends, and so you can't do a whole year away, but it's kind of like weekends where you'll attach yourself to a branch or another person that's doing the role that you wish to do, and you get experience through that, and you also get money for it as well, which is quite nice.
It's all about the money. Jess, so how important are soft skills? You touched on it earlier, saying that there is a big jump from being at university to then go into a career. Somebody wants to know, how can they develop their soft skills whilst they're at university now?
So I would say get involved in whatever opportunities you can do, whether that's part of kind of student union. So I was part of the scuba diving one at my university, and I was the social sec, which was completely outside of my comfort zone. I was the union council rep. So that it's really just kind of pushing on any slightly open doors that you can find, and taking what the skills that you can develop from those. And then when it comes to the workplace, okay, it might not be the same situations that you're using these soft skills in, but actually they are completely transferable. And yeah, I just can't highlight the kind of the importance and the benefit of having those soft skills. You can have, I've met engineers who, wonderful technical detail, they can to the nth degree describe the thermodynamic modelling of a power plant, but they can't explain it to anyone in kind of layman's terms. So they're kind of pigeonholed in very specialist areas, but if you want to try different things, then that's where the soft skills really come into play.
Thank you. And I also feel there's huge advantage of being part of a group or society at university as well. Were any of you in a society, an academic or I call them fun societies, whilst you were at university?
I was part of the dance society at Newcastle, having trained in ballet for about 15 years. And one of my favourite parts was in my final year. Some of the classes were student-led, so I led it was kind of like a stretching and conditioning class once a week for fellow students, which was really good in terms of delivering in front of people, and also just doing what I love. I attended the class every week, so I figured I might as well teach it in my final year.
that is a really great way to develop your own soft skills as well. There's, as I said before, a huge thank you and shout out once again to all of the clubs and societies at the universities that have supported this event and shared this event with their members. Getting involved in a society, attending events that they put on or promote, just like this one, is a really great experience for developing your soft skills, especially if you get to network after with some of the speakers or some of the employers. Also getting involved in the society from an admin perspective or starting up your own society. They're all really great skill sets and will look fabulous on a CV as well. I should explain, I keep looking down at my phone. That's because all these questions are coming in via my phone. If anybody in the audience would like to ask a question as well, please raise your hand and we will get a microphone over to you as well. No pressure for the microphone. So we've got a question for Rail as well now. So what can female students and graduates do to prepare themselves for a successful career in rail? I think where this is going, we heard from Nilda and Cecilia earlier about the changes in the rail industry. What would you say now as a graduate within rail that how students can prepare themselves for a successful career there?
Yeah, so I guess the rail industry is changing a fair amount. Obviously, all industries are changing, but especially with, obviously you see on the headlines there's strikes and HS2, and so it's a contentious industry because it's part of the national infrastructure. So I'd say you kind of need to be ready for change, kind of have an array of different skills and ways that you can adapt to the industry changing. I'd also say in general, it's because it's such a big company and there's a lot of people who've worked in it for a very long time, as they like to tell you. It's good to find mentors. You know, like there's the old guys who've worked on the rail since before you were born. If you get to talk to them and they can really guide you into what's a good path to go down, or also to find other women in the industry, because it is a very male-dominated industry, especially in engineering. So if you find women in the industry who can kind of tell you the best way to find your own path and kind of, find the way that Network Rail can work for you. So yeah, I would just say, try and find people who you can learn from as well.
Thank you, that's great. And very similar, but Sophie, we've got a question in for you, and I think we can throw this open to the panel after as well, actually. What are the development opportunities beyond the job at Virgin Media O2?
I think it's hard to think, well, there's so many, basically, is where I'm going with that. On the graduate scheme, you have some training sessions that are included as part of kind of external companies that come in to help you with your soft skills. Secondly, on the technology graduate scheme, we have internal speakers that have, we have someone that kind of looks after our scheme and puts on sessions just for us. So like we've got one on network economics next week. So lots of specialists, and that's where, to add to the question earlier about kind of learning on the job, like that's where I've actually learned more about telecoms, because it's kind of specialists actually looking at the network. So I didn't need to know it before. They'll teach you that on the job. So that's kind of training. We obviously have all the kind of online training. We have LinkedIn Learning. So there's plenty of development in that area. But then also across the company, there are so many opportunities. We've got a youth council that people are involved in. We have lots of networks. I'm involved in the Women's Network, in the Women in STEM work stream. So I get involved and have organised events for that. And another big part of my day job is the Future Careers Committee. And this is a committee of volunteer grads, interns and apprentices that organise events and kind of development opportunities for the interns, apprentices and graduates across the company. So in that role, I'm the president. So it's been a big leadership experience for me, and I've been able to have to learn on the job, but learn a lot of skills of kind of around leading a committee, organising, lots of admin, but organising events and kind of helping to get the community engaged, and that's a community of over 500 graduates, interns and apprentices across the country, well actually the UK, so it's really hard to engage that many people, but we are trying to do our best. So yeah, plenty of opportunity for development. You just kind of have to look out and see, and like stuff just falls and hopefully you say yes.
Thank you. Has anyone else got anything to add about the development opportunities within their organisations?
We have quite a few development opportunities, even outside of academia. So within academics, every year you're issued your standard learning credits, which are money that personally you can put towards whatever course that you want, basically. So a lot of people use them towards Duolingo and Rosetta Stone to then develop languages, and you can get premium subscriptions on them for free through the Navy. As well as that, you can sign up to courses which are Navy-led, but also have civilian equivalents. So in the past few months, I've studied for my coaching and mentoring level 3 that was delivered through the Navy. You're also given ILM certifications as well when you finish training, because the leadership opportunities that you're given. And outside of that, there's loads of opportunities to do with sport as well. So since joining the Navy, I've picked up volleyball, which I now represent the force for, and as well gymnastics, which I'd never tried before, but earlier this year I was competing in the British Gymnastics Championships in the novice division, albeit, but it was great fun. As well as that, we have adventurous training. So this is things like skiing, mountaineering, climbing, all sorts that you can sign up for, and you're actively encouraged to do so. So I'm going for a week skiing in January, which I'll get a qualification out of, but it's mainly for fun. But we call it development and leadership. And there's climbing competitions coming up next month I want to get involved in, and you're fully supported through all these as well. So yeah, just loads of things, and it's constantly advertised at you as well. Really easy to get involved in, and I'd encourage it.
Very jealous about the skiing professional development. I'd love a bit of that. Where are you going?
So basically, it's a week in January. Well, it's 2 weeks. You can either do both, but I'm only doing the one. And the military basically take over one of the resorts. So I think it's at LSBU Alps this year. So the military will take over, and it'll be a week-long party.
It'll be fabulous. So jealous. We've got time for a few more questions. Jess, I wanted to come to you because for STEMAZING, professional development, that's what it's all about, right? And students can get involved in this at any point during their course, but also once they've graduated, like you did.
Yeah, in STEMAZING, there are women who are literally just fresh out of sixth form into first year of university. There are women who are 2 years off retirement, but they want to give something back to the community, and they want to kind of pass on the wisdom, the knowledge that they've got. So yeah, it's a really, really varied kind of network of women in STEM, all of STEM, maths. There are women who don't necessarily do like the pure science side of engineering, for example. Maybe they're HR, maybe they're admin, but actually they have a really valuable experience within the STEM industry, because it's not just kind of the theoretical kind of maths or science that really supports the whole industry. Without HR, it'd all fall apart. Without admin, power plants would fall apart. So yeah, it's a whole network. And I just wanted to add on, so I've had I've been part of 3 companies now, and the professional development is very dependent on the company. So I had one company which was really large company, 11,000 people, had a graduate scheme which I wasn't on, but that was really good for kind of handing on a plate the professional development opportunities. Whereas other company I've worked for, and my current one, because it's so small, you have to go out there and find it yourself. But that's where kind of the STEMAZING Inspiration Academy was something that I found through LinkedIn actually, and kind of went, oh, maybe my company's not going to offer this to me, but I'm going to make the most of it and take that opportunity.
Thank you. And there's a huge platform of mentors within the STEMAZING community as well that you can tap into for advice. And when we talk about the competition just before the break shortly, we'll talk about the opportunity that it has to support you as a public speaker, which I should get myself down onto as well. we've got quite a few more questions in, so I'm going to move swiftly on. Somebody's asked, is it an absolute must to go to university to work within a STEM job? I know it's absolutely not. I know all of the employers that are represented here today offer some kind of school leaver scheme. So I'm just going to quickly start with Sophie for a quick whistle stop of what you can do.
I'll be quick, but we have tons and tons of apprenticeships on offer, some degree apprenticeships actually as well, all in different areas, range of technical skills. They're all on our website, but some have the same starting salaries as our graduate scheme, I believe, or similar. So plenty of opportunities within apprenticeships.
Yeah, it's the same in ECRO. We have loads of apprenticeships in different departments, so different disciplines. And they're pretty good apprenticeships as far as I've heard, so I would recommend looking into that.
It's the same in the Navy, so we offer different apprenticeship schemes, and some of them you can actually pick up a degree through that's fully funded by the Navy. There's officer roles outside of STEM that you can also join, like logistics, without an engineering degree as well.
Interestingly, a lot of the older kind of folks within the power industry didn't do degrees, and they actually came through apprenticeships back in the 70s, 80s and 90s. So yeah, it's completely a route to get into a role without a degree.
Excellent, thank you. The sponsored degree with the Royal Navy, actually, if you're already on a degree, you can actually apply to switch onto that to have a bursary to pay for your tuition as well, which I'm sure might be covered a bit later on, or if there's anyone from the Royal Navy in the chat, they can pop that in there as well. There's lots of questions. Hopefully our employers are online in the chat answering all of these questions as well. I want to move on to the hard truth of what you were most challenged by in the role when you first started. What is it that you struggled with the most, and how did you overcome it?
I think actually after doing the year in industry, I wanted to come on the graduate scheme and kind of get right into it day one, have like 9 till 5, be really busy, because I liked getting involved in as much as I could as possible. And when I started the graduate scheme, it wasn't like that. It was quite kind of, they gave me a lot more time to learn and get used to the job again, which looking back, I'm very grateful for, because I think it wouldn't have been wise to get me really busy straight away. But I think at the time I found it quite challenging, because I kind of wanted to be busy all the time, and actually I had time to do a lot more learning and development and kind of getting used to processes and speaking to new graduates that had joined with me, getting familiar with my colleagues. Like, it was a bit slower in a good sense of kind of, it kept it at a learning pace. But yeah, and now looking back, I'm grateful for that opportunity, because I am very busy now. But that's what I like. I like to be busy. And it just meant that at that time, any opportunity I saw, I would go for, because I thought, yes, I've got the time that I can do this in. As well, alongside my day job, my manager was giving me work, but she was really encouraging of like getting involved in the Women's Network, the Future Careers Committee, any opportunities, our volunteering days, all that we could get involved in. I was kind of just yes, which meant I had a really fun experience at the start.
So I'd say when I first started, it was communication was probably my biggest challenge. Obviously, I come from uni where you don't really have to communicate with anyone if you don't want to. Obviously, I did, but just like in general, like office communication as well is like a whole new skill that is not taught anywhere, obviously. And also communicating with a whole different group of people. I mean, everyone I work with is, an older man mostly. So, which is, good for them. But like, it's a different demographic of people to learn to speak to in a way. And sometimes they'd say things and I'd be like, I have no idea what you've just said. I don't know what you're talking about. And also all the lingo for the industry that you move into, you have to learn that. But I would say, just with that, just don't be afraid to ask, because sometimes people don't even know, and they've been saying it for years. So yeah, I'd say that's like the biggest skill that I had to learn. But people, people are patient, and they'll take time. They understand it takes time to get comfortable in a new environment.
So for me, I'd say my biggest challenge was probably the opposite of Sophie's. So I had quite a relaxed university experience, and then going into military training, it's quite full on. So you're thrown in straight away, straight in at the deep end. So some days we're working from 6 a.m. and not finishing until 7 p.m. But the things that get you through that, it's that you're supported all the way through. So when you, all the way through the military, you're assigned a divisional officer, which is there for your pastoral support, talk to them about your problems, they'll signpost you to further support. It's just someone to talk to. And as well as that, I touched on it earlier, but the relationships that you make with the people that you're going through training with and that you work with, you're all going through the same thing, and you make friendships for life and relationships for life like that as well.
So the biggest thing for me was moving into an engineering role where I didn't necessarily have the engineering background. And I think of a lot of the difficulty that I found with that was the pressure that I put on myself. Actually, I wasn't necessarily expected to know everything about performance engineering straight away, but I felt like I had to. And actually, for the first probably year of work, I really struggled to actually ask for help. And it was once I kind of took that step, that quite scary step to say, look, I don't really know what you're talking about, can you help? That actually it really opened up opportunities and knowledge for me. So it is scary, and a lot of the pressure was just me and myself. But once you get past that fear zone, you kind of step into the growth zone, and you learn a lot more from that.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Last question is, so what's your experience within your organisations or since you've graduated with intersectionality within your industry? Isabel, you've talked a little bit about that already, about older men. But is there anything else that you have found out since being in the organisations about the community for genders, different races, age, ability, class divide, that kind of thing? And this is coming from a candidate who's put in there that she's a disabled woman herself, so people with disabilities. Those as well, I call it neurospicy, because the whole of my household are not neurotypical, and I don't like the term neurotypical, so we are referring to ourselves as neurospicies in our household. So again, how does your organisation support people with hidden disabilities, obvious disabilities, but also cultural beliefs and so on?
I think culturally, VMO2 is very encouraging of diversity, inclusion and equity. We are trying to celebrate everyone for who they are and are welcoming them as they are. And we have networks within the community. So these are kind of volunteer-led, and we have that for the Women's Network, we have that for disabilities, we have that for neurodiversity, and all the different kind of intersectionalities. We have networks to represent people where they can come together and kind of have that support network. But equally, that should be company-wide as well. With your manager, you will be able to kind of share that if you feel comfortable, and they will help guide you through the processes of how can we adapt this to better suit your needs. And there should be processes in place to then help you deliver your day-to-day role. But it's been very encouraging whilst I'm a graduate. I know that as an intern and a graduate, I've felt comfortable being who I am, and seeing that equally people have that support network around them. We have mentors, and just a big support network that we can go to kind of share these needs. So it should be very well catered for.
I know I've talked a lot about the men I work with, and I think before I started working there, the idea of working in the environment was quite scary to me. But I would say that they're all really helpful and really nice. And yeah, so I would say it's not really been an issue for me personally. I think Network Rail in general, we have several support networks. So there's like a carers support network, disabilities, multi-faith, diversity and inclusion, LGBT. And I'm not a part of one, but I've heard from people that they are really helpful for kind of, you know, if you feel like you don't know how to deal with an issue, they can guide you through, and you can talk to your peers who can help you from their experience. Yeah, and I've just heard in general that people think that diversity and inclusion in Network Rail is done quite well. We have regular training, and I think there's this sort of the slogan of like, you can bring your whole self to work, which I think is quite a nice idea. So yeah, I'd say it's something people really do think about a lot at Network Rail.
In the Navy, diversity and inclusion, there's a massive focus on that. So every person in the Navy does yearly training on diversity and inclusion. And you can also choose to do further training and become a diversity and inclusion practitioner. There's multiple of which on every single ship in the fleet and every single base who are open to talk or just to deal with any concerns that you might have. Me, myself, you know, I'm an engineer in the military. I couldn't have really gone into a more male-dominated environment. But I've never felt like a female engineer or even an ethnic minority engineer. I've just been an engineering officer in the Navy, and there's never been any emphasis on the fact that that's been the case. And I think that's a really good way forward, and it's a very forward-thinking organisation with that sort of thing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that is perfect timing. Hopefully we got through most of your questions. I know there were a lot still unanswered, but there's some that I feel would be particularly good for the graduate panel discussion and careers advisors discussion that's coming on later after the break. So we are now heading into a break. We've got 5 minutes, and so please go and stretch your legs, and we will see you back here shortly. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had time to stretch your legs. We're moving straight in now to our next keynote speaker, Commander Alice Williams-Allden from the Royal Navy.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. My name's Commander Alice Williams-Allden. I'm an Air Engineer Officer in the Royal Navy. I joined in 2005. That's a date that's probably worryingly close to some of your dates of birth, so I won't dwell too long on how long I've been doing this. But I wanted to talk to you today about my personal experiences, the types of engineering roles that you might find in a military aviation environment, but also some wider thoughts about what I think it means to be a woman in engineering, and how the Navy has changed even during the 18 years that I've been doing this job. So first of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about perceptions, stereotypes, and first impressions. So when I step out here in front of you in uniform, what kind of assumptions do you make about me? Don't tell me, I might not want to know, but I can probably guarantee that all of you have some sort of idea about what a military officer, and specifically what a female military officer, might involve. I know nearly 20 years ago, I certainly did, and I was pretty sure, to be honest, that that wasn't for me. So in my eyes, a military officer would have to be very outdoorsy, a natural extrovert, probably would have been captain of a sports team, maybe done CCF, Air Cadets, something like that. Certainly not someone like me. I didn't have family in the forces. I'd say I'm naturally relatively reserved, don't enjoy camping or sleeping outside. I still don't. And I have to admit that it was something that I had always associated with men. That social conditioning starts pretty young. And then when you add that extra layer of male-dominated engineering into a male-dominated industry like the armed forces, well, that's a real double whammy. And actually, I found that there's a range of people that do that. First of all, you've got the trailblazers, the real go-getters, the people who want to be the first woman to be on a submarine, the first female fast jet pilot. And we absolutely need people like that, because they're the people who inspire us and show girls that actually all of these avenues are open to us. But then you have the people who actually just want to follow a male-dominated career path because that's a job that naturally interests them. It's a fantastic opportunity and they don't want to miss out, even if there are barriers or hurdles, perceived or otherwise, to get there. So my first point is really, when you're looking at careers, don't automatically dismiss anything that you think might not be a natural fit for you. It's well worth just having a deeper look. So how did I end up joining an organisation that I wasn't convinced would be a good fit for me? And what kind of roles have I done since? So the first thing that got my attention were the learning opportunities and the variety of different roles on offer. I heard about the Navy when I was still at school, age 17. A careers officer came to visit. And I knew already at that point that I was interested in engineering. I studied maths and physics. I specifically had an interest in aerospace and Formula One at the time. And I applied to the Navy to get sponsorship through university, a scheme which still exists to this day. And I was accepted at Southampton University to study aerospace engineering. But since graduating, I've been really lucky to do a really, really broad range of roles. In the forces, we tend to switch roles every 2 years or so. And those have ranged from very traditional Navy engineering roles, which I'll go into in a moment, to operational tours. And actually a couple of jobs too that sit outside of engineering altogether. But they've really, really broadened my skill set and helped me to become a better engineer. But first of all, going right back to the start, even though I was sponsored by the Navy, I was a civilian at university, and I got to do short placements outside of term time. And I did immediately after graduating, I did a placement in the summer at Williams Formula One team, which really reinforced that saying of don't ask, don't get. I almost didn't bother asking for a placement because I knew how notoriously difficult it was to get in. But perseverance really did pay off. So I spent the summer working in their materials department, which was absolutely fascinating. So I joined the Navy in the September after that, and after my initial naval training, I joined my first helicopter squadron, which was operating about 12 aircraft at the time. And I had a lot of responsibility early on, but I also had a huge amount of support. So I'd often take maybe 5 or 6 aircraft away on a ship or to other land bases, leading a team on my own and being responsible for the airworthiness of the aircraft. So that's making sure that they are fit to perform whatever mission the Navy wants them to, but also making sure that they're not going to hurt anybody, so either the aircrew flying them or people on the ground, that they're able to do that safely. And that would often involve problems like the helicopter developing a fault. So looking at the picture on the screen, maybe a cracked windscreen that's been caused by extremes of temperature operating in a really cold environment. Now, most of the time, the engineering procedures are relatively straightforward. You'll repair or replace a part. But the interesting bit comes when you're away from home and you haven't got that level of support that you're used to. So you might not necessarily have a spare windscreen on the shelf, but instead you have to make a judgment call based on what you do have. So in this case, could you fly with the crack? Is it safe? For how long? Is there a temporary repair that you could design and implement? And that's where that engineering mindset, the judgment of risk, really comes in. But from the start, it was clear that the organisation had a really clear common aim, and we would all help each other out to achieve that. And I have to admit, it was an unusual position to be in at times. I was probably aged 23, 24 when I first took a team away on my own, of about 50 people, predominantly men, ranging from my age right into their 50s. Actually, that didn't feel that unusual given my educational background. I was already used to being a minority. But even though the military is quite a hierarchical organisation, it's also really collaborative, so I felt really well supported throughout that. After a couple of years on the squadron, I had my first non-engineering role, so we're actually working in a personnel policy department in the Ministry of Defence, where I was responsible for the coordination of that department's output. And if that sounds a bit vague, then actually that's intentional, because I was part business planner, part personal assistant to a senior officer, part policy maker. But the common thread throughout all of it was the reliance on good interpersonal skills to achieve that aim. The success in that role depended on me having a wide network, and the strength of my argument to change policy was absolutely dependent on the facts and the evidence, much like engineering, but actually how I delivered and communicated that message made a real difference to how it was received. When I agreed to do that job, I thought that it was so far removed from engineering that actually it wouldn't be helpful for my career, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I think there's a lot to be said for getting as much breadth as possible, and particularly in the early years. And all of these other skills that we develop are really complementary to that core engineering skill set. The other thing is, I think it gives you a chance to understand what you're good at and what you like doing, and hopefully within the first couple of years of your career, those two things will align and you'll hit the jackpot. So after 2 years in the Ministry of Defence, I returned back to core Navy aviation engineering, and I was responsible for the quality assurance of the aviation support facilities for all ships in the fleet. So I would travel out to the ships worldwide to check their technical equipment with safeties and to ensure that the people maintaining those items were informed and supported to do that. And then to mix it up a bit more, after that, I spent 6 months in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Sarajevo, where, again, I did something completely unrelated to engineering. I did a media job. I was acting as the spokesperson for the EU military forces out there, which was fascinating. I was working alongside 20 different nations and learnt so much about different cultures and ways of working. So in the space of about 10 years in the Navy, I'd done 3 pretty technical engineering jobs, which relied on my degree, but I'd also had the privilege of doing something completely different for a short time before coming back to my core specialisation. And, you know, we touched on it earlier in the panel session, but I think sometimes engineering degrees can sound quite restrictive. You know, you do aerospace engineering or you do computer science. And the choices that we make at maybe age 18 can seem quite narrow, but I don't think they are. You know, we've heard already that there's huge breadth and transferable skills across all the disciplines. And if we take the time to venture outside of that core business, the more we have to offer back to our core area. And for my final slide, I wanted to reflect on what has changed in my nearly 20 years of being a woman in engineering in my organisation. When I joined the Navy, women had been serving at sea for about 15 years, and several years after I joined, we were able to serve on submarines too. So those engineering opportunities really are open to everybody now. That said, it takes more than a policy change for culture to change. But I can say very honestly, as a woman, that I have felt very, very well supported throughout. And there are several reasons for that. First of all, the value in having a supportive and accessible network has been recognised and facilitated at all levels. So we have a formally established Naval Service Women's Network, and we have a mentoring scheme if you want that. For some people, though, growing a network is actually much more organic than that, and it develops naturally through normal workplace friendships. But however you choose to grow your network, the value it brings is absolutely huge. First of all, it's nice to spend time with people who are in a similar situation. But second, it's also a really useful way to test your thinking, to bounce ideas off each other without fear of criticism. And I found that that really helped to develop my confidence in my early years of career. The Navy's also been absolutely excellent about introducing policies designed to retain women in the workplace. I've got 2 small boys, age 1 and 3, and I've had 2 year-long maternity periods now with a gradual return to work and part-time flexible working available if I wanted it. What's also great, though, is these family-friendly policies like shared parental leave and the flexible working. They're not just for women, they're for men as well, and loads of men are taking them up as well, so it doesn't feel like you're singled out by using them. And my final point is the value of allies and role models. Having visible and proactive people who openly call out unacceptable behaviour, whether that's male or female. And that's really important at all levels, not just leaders, and I found the Navy particularly good at that. And it's never too early to be a role model. So I'll finish by asking you what you might do in the future, or not even just in the future, but now, to help spark that interest in engineering and technology careers in other girls and women, or to support your future colleagues in achieving their goals. And we've had examples already today of how we can do that through STEM ambassadors and the STEMAZING scheme. But our industry will fail if we let all of the talent go to other areas. So please support each other along the way. Thanks very much for listening. I'm not sure we have time for questions, but my colleagues and I are here for the rest of the afternoon, so I hope to meet you afterwards.
Thank you so much, Alice. We did have lots of questions come in during that session, and we are tight on time. However, there are a couple of people from the Royal Navy that are in the chat room and are able to answer those questions now. And for everybody who's in the lecture theatre with us today, there will be the opportunity for face-to-face questions and answers after the event as well. So I'd like to move into our skills workshop now, and we have the whole rail network represented in this next workshop, which is called Women in Rail, the Stats and the Myths. So I'm going to hand over straight to you now, but I'm bringing the clicker.
Okay, good afternoon. It's great to be here with everybody. We're going to just hopefully bust some myths even about some stats around women in rail and maybe illuminate you as to removing those barriers and what you can do to explore your career in rail and find your place. I'm Michelle Russell. I'm Head of Workforce Analytics at the National Skills Academy for Rail, and we promote Routes into Rail as the website one-stop shop to find out information. I'll let the panel introduce themselves and then we'll get going.
I've introduced myself already, but once again, I'm Cecilia, working for VolkerRail.
Hi, I'm Malaika Jamil. I'm an engineering apprentice, currently in my second year of my degree.
Hi, I'm Isabel Hannah, former graduate at VolkerRail, now working in asset data team.
Right, let's see what happens when we press the button.
Every day, millions of us rely on a train to go about our business. Our railways are the UK's backbone, connecting communities and keeping the country running. But as passengers, there's so much we don't see. Thousands of skilled professionals making those journeys possible. Coordinating, advocating, building, problem-solving and innovating. And the rail sector is moving full steam ahead, with landmark developments and tens of thousands more jobs on the way. All this means dynamic, rewarding opportunities in rail. Whether you're a school leaver or looking for a career change, we're looking for eager minds to get on board. Be part of the movement towards a cleaner, greener future and enjoy perks like job security, pension schemes and travelling within the UK and beyond. The Routes into Rail website is your one-stop shop for the rail sector, showcasing thousands of varied roles. Ready to get on track to your dream job? Think career. Think rail.
So as was mentioned earlier, we work in rail, so we like to see lots of rail tracks, so you saw plenty there. But if you're not considering a career in rail, my question to you would be why? And I guess it's probably centred around some of the perceptions and beliefs that you have about the sector and the types of jobs that you see that are available. It's been mentioned once already today, is that you can't be what you can't see. So hopefully after this presentation, you'll have all learned loads about the different types of jobs that exist in engineering across all of the different sectors. So just a little stat for you to start with. From our most recent workforce survey, the rail industry has 16% of its workforce identifying as women, which has shown a significant increase from 2016. You could see we had a slight dip in 2022 there, but that's now back on the rise. You'll remember the stat from Network Rail earlier of 19%, which is really good from an organisation perspective, but as the industry as a whole, it's still got room for improvement in that space. So thinking about some of the careers that you can do, they're not just limited to STEM subjects or engineering. There are different things that you can do. And another word that I want you to remember and take away from today is transferable. So all of the skills that you're learning, whilst they might be in quite a narrow field for some of you with engineering, think about what there is transferable. And in the previous presentation, we saw lots of information about doing different things that are completely unrelated, but there was an element of transferable skills there, and those will be things that you can take with you throughout your career wherever you go. But just looking at some of the things on the screen here, project management, that's highly transferable. It can be in engineering, but it can be more broad. And likewise, IT and technology, proportion of females is only 1 in 5 there. Again, an area for development and growth. So hopefully you're going to start thinking the answer to this question is yes. So I think we've got a poll question now.
So the polls are in the poll tab. So the polls are in the chat. Poll tab, and we've just run one that is who is currently considering working in the rail industry. Who is currently considering working in the rail industry? Results now, and we're just going to publish the results now. 55% of people are considering 55% of people a career within the rail industry so far. We're going to run the rail industry so far. So if anybody missed that, the next there is a tab. So if anybody missed that, there is a tab and you can take part in the next chat section called polls, and you can take part in the next one. That's going live right now. And so it was 40%. Of people do now consider a career in rail. So why does Network Rail care about getting more women into engineering roles?
Yeah, so I guess that's for me. I guess ultimately, why does it care about women? I think overall, I think people generally believe that a difference of perspective is always a good thing. Engineering, there's lots of different you need to look at different perspectives when, pulling a project together. So it's good to have general diversity in the workforce to kind of have a difference of, way of thinking. Yeah, and I think also Network Rail it's a service company. It's providing a service to passengers. So it's also good for that service and the people producing that service to reflect the actual population of the country and the people who will actually use the service.
I think I'll add to that as well. All the data tells us that having a diverse workforce is not just about bringing each individual person with their different ideas, but that by having a diversity within your workforce, people are more creative. There are lots of problems that we have in the world at the moment when it comes to solving big problems. Problems to do with energy generation, problems to do with, you see it everywhere. So having that diversity of thought within your organization, within your industry is just really important. And I think will go a long way to helping to solve the issues that we have.
We got time for another question?
Yep. So we have a master's student who's studying civil engineering, or they're a civil engineering graduate but a master's student now, actively looking for entry-level jobs in in her discipline, so civil engineering. And she's also experienced lots of rejection from other employers. How can she find a role within the rail industry from a civil engineering background?
So I'm a degree apprentice on my project, and I work within the civil engineering teams. So civils includes loads of things like the structures of bridges, the new platform builds, existing platform extensions, lift shafts, a load of stuff. And I feel like just continue to keep applying, because there's so much opportunity out there, and more as you go on, there's a lot more civil engineering opportunities that are opening up as well. And I'm taking part in not just civil engineering, but also ancillary civils, which is essentially minor civils works, which helps with the signalling team, telecoms team. So I would just keep looking, because there's so many different civil engineering roles within the rail industry.
Great. Another question. So as a postgraduate student in renewable energy engineering, which kind of role would fit for my profile within the rail industry?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because you're taking on board the point of transferability. I think there are many roles that would fit for that, but particularly around sustainability and looking at renewable energy within the sector, using, there's lots of work on decarbonising the network. So there's the opportunity there to see how those engineering skills could be influenced. And to a lesser degree, there's work in the hydrogen space as well, using alternative fuels. So I think that would be worth investigating.
Great, and gosh, lots coming in now. What was the most exciting programme worked on in 2023?
I think for me, it's just getting more involved with the civils team, which is a discipline I've chosen to work with. Just seeing new structures being built, new installations, work on existing platforms, and how passengers are really kept into consideration. It's just been really exciting to be working on the Hope Valley project and seeing all the re-signalling works, new telecom works, and new platform installation, bridges, all of it. I think it's all just very interesting, and you really get an insight to different disciplines within the project.
Great, and we have a question on mentors. So, and we spoke earlier about visible role models. How, and Cecilia, you showed a lovely slide with lots of other women within the organisation at VolkerRail. But in terms of women within leadership positions within the rail industry, and also women mentors within the rail industry is a question that we've had.
Yeah, so there's a number of ways you can just contact somebody, and I would more than happily mentor somebody, but there are also plenty of schemes. So Women in Rail, for example, have mentorship schemes. I'm sure each organization will have mentorship schemes as well, but obviously if you're not within the organization, I would just encourage you to reach out, because I think women, particularly in leadership positions, really want to see more women in the industry. I mean, I'm passionate about it. I think there's no reason for it to be dominated by a single gender. So yeah, absolutely. Just reach out and obviously look up the ones I've mentioned, and there are usually plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. There are lots of network groups within the organisation once you've got your foot in the door, but sometimes that first challenge is getting your foot in the door. So reaching out through general organisations like Women in Rail, Women in Transport, their mentoring schemes are broadly open to get involved. And like Cecilia said, that we're more than happy to support and mentor people to get into roles, as a career starter.
Great, and we've got another question about specific degree as well. So we've got somebody here studying aerospace engineering. They're in their first year, but they're wondering, are there any schemes that you offer that they could go into from an aerospace engineering discipline?
So I think aerospace, probably the closest relationship would be to mechanical. There's a mechanical engineering graduate scheme at VolkerRail. and I imagine with aerospace you'd be accredited for that. Trying to think, maybe civil as well, potentially, but I'd say those are the, so that could be track, mechanical track engineering or overhead line mechanical engineering as well.
And to the panel, do you provide work-life balance? So, for example, do you have hybrid remote working, well-being days, etc.?
I think broadly across the industry, it is moving, certainly post-COVID, to a much more flexible hybrid work pattern. I think it does depend largely on your role within an organisation, because there are some roles that just cannot be performed remotely. So it depends what you're doing and where you're doing it, but certainly it's moving in that direction to facilitate that where that's possible. And I know Network Rail have volunteering days within their organisation, so you might want to just say a few words about that.
Yeah, so I think we get, I think it's 5 volunteer days a year, and you can take off, and that could be anything you want to volunteer for. It's not really, yeah, they don't really probe that much into what you decide to do with your time. We also have, I think, more annual leave than most industries, I think. And generally, yeah, people are pretty flexible about how you balance your work life. As long as you get the work done, people are pretty understanding overall.
As an apprentice, it's mandatory for us to have 20% off the job training. So whether that be you doing uni work or any other training, it's mandatory for you to take some time off work and get either some uni work done or additional training. So whenever I come back from uni, I always have Fridays off, and my line manager and everyone else on the project also allows me to catch up on any coursework or any revision that needs to be done for university.
There are lots more questions coming in, but unfortunately we are out of time for the questions part. But we're opening another poll now, just to see if these insights have changed any perception. So we'll reveal the results of that shortly. But we'll hand back to now. And also your colleagues are all in the chat answering the questions brilliantly as well.
Fabulous. Just to give you a size of the potential opportunities within the sector, NSAR has just released its annual workforce report, and that will be available from our website in the next few days, and perhaps we can share the link afterwards to that. But basically, between now and 2030, we anticipate that 75,000 people will leave through either retirement or other forms of attrition. So that just gives you an indication of the types of opportunities that you can pursue. So I would recommend that you go and look at Routes into Rail. I know VolkerRail have shared their careers website through the chat as well. So just have a look at any of those sites for opportunities and careers if it's something that you are interested in pursuing, remembering that you've all got those transferable skills that you're learning through your degree or education programs, whichever pathway you're currently taking.
And the poll result stats are in. So we now have 69% of people would consider a career in rail. So
fantastic. We're doing our job, girls.
That's brilliant.
That's great. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'd like to introduce our next keynote speaker now. We have Dalia Ali from GSK, who is a digital and tech future leader.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. My name is Dalia. As Amanda mentioned, I'm a tech FLP at GSK, which is basically one of our early talent programs. And I've been at GSK for just over a year now. But I'm here today to talk to you about women in tech, and specifically from my personal experience. So I first started uni back in 2018, and I was studying computer science, and the first time I entered a lecture hall, I realized how low the number of women were that was in that room. So to give you a bit of numbers, there were 20 women to 280 guys. And it's not something that goes unnoticed, if I'm going to be honest, but for some reason it didn't actually affect me, and I didn't realize why until a bit later on. But some situations happened that then forced me to realize that women in tech is a thing, that women are a minority in tech. First one was the first time so my second year I was doing a group project with a few guys. None of them, I've met them before. First time I was doing it without my friends, and so I was paired up with 4 other guys. And I remember I was just silent, observing what they were talking about, kind of seeing how it was going. And then I remember one of them that was sat next to me turned to me, and then he said, "Don't worry, we won't give you something too hard. And if it helps, I'm gonna help you a bit if you couldn't figure it out. It should be easy." And I don't know if that's relatable to some of you. I can see some smiles, but at that time, I remember thinking, I need to stop hitting this. I remember thinking, who on earth is he talking to? Because I wasn't used to people doing things not doing my tasks for me. I could do that. And then I was reflecting on it, and I thought maybe he thought he was helping at some point. He thought that for some reason she needs help. But what that actually did was it made me think, am I not competent enough? Do those guys think I'm not good enough to weigh in, have a good opinion, actually affect how the project goes, and so on? And then the second time, so I just stayed silent, didn't say much, but I was observing, and I realized one of the guys was a bit more serious about getting stuff done. So next time we came in, I was talking to him, we started discussing stuff, and then we were talking and discussing ideas, and then I was mentally rolling up my sleeve and just planning stuff. I got my pen and paper out. I was in full-on, let's get this done mode. And then I could see some of the other guys later coming in that day, and then they were just bent over seeing what we were talking about. And they were just listening in. And I remember then that kind of shift in how they looked at me, almost of oh, she doesn't need someone to do her assignments for her. Maybe she could do it on her own. And that was the first time. Second time was when I was applying for a placement, and I was told by one of the guys on my course, they're look, you're good, but you might not, don't get your hopes up too high. And I remember thinking, is that just because I'm I don't know, maybe an international student? I don't know if you have international students in the room, but sponsorship makes things harder, way, way harder for us. And then they're no, it's not because of that. And because the guys are applying, it was meant to be obvious. And I'm well, what do you mean the guys are applying? They're not academically that much better than, we're getting the same grades if I'm not doing better in some modules. And then he's no, but they're guys, and it's tech. So they're guys in tech, you have lower chances. Again, don't know why that didn't faze me, but sadly it fazed a lot of, so none of my women, none of the women that were my friends at the time, none of them applied for placements. None of them went for it because they just thought we're not getting a chance. And I realized actually why some of that didn't affect me later on. So I went in for my first interview, which was actually at GSK as a placement student, not as a graduate. And after the interview was done, I remember the amazing lady that was doing the interview, she told me outside of the interview, what made you go into computer science? And when they tell you that at an interview, you probably don't think you think it's a trick question. You don't think it's outside the interview. But then she was telling me that she started in science, her background was in science, and then once she started working, that's when she actually got into tech and started learning about more data stuff, and she got interested. But she told me that once she, when she was applying for unis, bless you, it wasn't very common for women to join. It wasn't even a thought. It never occurred to her. And that's when I responded to her, and I was thinking that when I applied, that's what the numbers looked like when I first joined uni here. But I'm originally from Egypt, and that's where the numbers looked like in Egypt when I was applying at that same year. And I got those numbers, to be honest, that's the uni that I was thinking of going to, but there are unis where there are a lot more women there, a lot more women that are engineers. So I didn't grow up with the idea of women being engineers or in tech being such a weird thing. My own mom she majored in business and she minored in computer science back in the early 90s. It wasn't a new idea, women being in tech or engineering. And that's when I realized that that's what helped me separate what's culture from what's reality of what I could actually do. And I couldn't sum it up more beautifully than that quote here. So it says, cultural constraints condition and limit our choices, shaping our characters with their imperatives. It's not easy separating what's culture from what you want to do, your skills, your capabilities. It's not easy, but it's actually just a mindset thing. And it's easier said than done. One of the things that in my journey helped me actually become a lot more comfortable as a woman in tech was people I met along the ways, which you call allies. So I'm not going to get into detail about every single person I met because they were amazing, people that helped me. But allies are people that they affect how you feel, how you express yourself, how you just show up at a talk or at a discussion or at work, because you feel way more comfortable. You feel like you're able to actually be yourself without feeling that you need to man up because you're in a team that's full of men, for example. You don't need to feel that because you have allies there. And one of them taught me a very important lesson a few weeks ago. I wanted to do something new that he was an expert in, and then he said, you can shadow on me doing it. And I was like, really? And then he told me, why not? And I was like, I just didn't know if it was allowed. And he was like, why not? And then later on, he was like, maybe we could even let you listen in a few times and then do it your own self. Like, do it 100% without anyone else there to help you. And I was like, really? And he's like, why not? So you're picking up on a trend here. But it made me realize that the reason sometimes is that because we're just almost saying mentally no to ourselves before actually going to try something. We're the ones not letting ourselves go try it. But the second most important thing I realized about allies was that they don't need to look like you. So I think everyone on that list, other than my dissertation supervisor, was a man. And I've so far only had 3 managers that were men, and they were all middle-aged men, white men, and that had nothing to do with the fact that they helped me. They were an ally, that they never made me feel like I can't say my opinion or that I'm disregarded and so on. It was quite the opposite. I used their help in a lot of things. And that's where allies really kind of shaped my own journey. It affects your confidence as you go on. And lastly, instead of me just talking the talk and not walking it, at GSK, we have, so the program that I'm in, which is the Tech FLP one, it's led by Sophie Bine, who's actually in the room, a great program manager. And the D&I recruitment targets that we have for it is that it's meant to be at least 50% females and at least 50% like people from ethnic diversities, from diverse ethnic backgrounds. And we have a lot of different programs and initiatives and mentoring just for women and to get women to be leaders. And a few weeks back, we had a tech panel that was led by our Chief of Digital and Tech, which is a woman, a really successful one as well. And my whole point of bringing this up is not to advertise it, but it's more of to say that a lot of it, when the culture supports it, it becomes a lot easier to be a woman, to feel comfortable in your own skin and feel like you're exactly like the man next to you. You're not different. There's nothing different about you. You're an employee that's showing up, doing their work, or you're going to uni or whatever it is. You're not different. What you could bring to the table is the same thing that the next person can, if not even better. And finally, I'm not going to go into detail about this because I thought this poster had a lot of amazing takeaways. But the 2 main takeaways that, if you don't remember anything from my talk, that's what I'd want you to remember. The only 2 things is A, So if you're going for an opportunity, let the person at the other end of that opportunity tell you no. Don't let your mindset tell you no. Don't let your culture tell you no, or your friends or anyone. And it's easier said than done. It requires a lot of practice, but don't be the reason to tell yourself no or to not pursue something, because that's when you really start limiting yourself. And the second thing is, allies are so important. Hold into them for dear life. But when you're first starting, you might not have a lot of allies, or you might not still know them. So you need to be almost your own first ally. You need to believe in what you want to do and what you're doing for other people to actually start believing in it, until you have those amazing people that we call allies. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
So we have one quick question come in.
Yes.
There's been a few actually, but there'll be somebody on the Graduate Careers Advisor panel discussion shortly. The question is, how will I know who is an ally and who isn't? It sounds like you've had a real journey actually trying to understand who's got your corner. So obviously there's been quite a lot at GSK.
Yeah.
And so finding an ally, maybe it's within a mentor.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier where if you have programs and initiatives and events and they're specifically for women, everyone that's attending there is meant to be an ally. It's easier sometimes in that sense, but I'm going to say that everyone that was on my list of allies are people that I've worked with. I never knew that they were allies to start with, but working with them and having them empower me and help me and give me opportunities and help my growth, that's what made me realize that they were allies. And it takes time. It's not, unless you meet someone, specifically a women in tech event like the one that we're in today, it's going to take a while to actually know who's your ally and who isn't. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
And we have a short careers video for GSK whilst we're getting our next speaker.
Why did I choose the FLP program? That's a good question.
So there were a ton of reasons, actually. It's an amazing development and learning opportunity right out of college as a recent undergrad.
I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be within the pharmaceutical industry and within the tech sphere.
I had the opportunity of doing some co-ops before, and luckily I had an opportunity to do my co-op at another pharmaceutical company, and I really kind of learned what was important to me, and just GSK's values really stuck out.
The value that sticks out to me the most is patient focus. So despite all of the blockbuster hits they have and the pharmaceutical products that do really well with the money, they want to make sure that they're getting the quality products to the patient in a timely manner so they can live a happy and healthy life.
Now that I started at GSK, I'm learning about different things I could work in that I didn't even really know were options when I was in school.
Unfortunately, my major, studying pharmaceutical marketing in school and economics, and GSK kind of matched up perfectly in terms of the tech FLP program. And when I found it, I was like, it's that perfect match. So I applied, fortunately got in, and GSK's values aligned to mine, and here we are today.
So it really just kind of opens your eyes up to what your options are. It gives you the chance to try a few different things, all the while learning about the different things within the biopharm industry.
I didn't have any prior sales experience, so I thought it was so wonderful that such a huge global company was taking so much initiative and interest in developing early talent, and I think that was one of the things that really pulled me to GSK and this program as well.
It's just a completely different experience to go into an actual company and get put on actual projects and deliverables that require you to use that learning, and to also learn a lot more about how it works in the real world, because it's rarely, if ever, the same as reading a textbook, right?
You're thrown into very new and unique situations. The program really challenges you and forces you to learn quickly.
I also felt like it's more of a fun company than you would typically think. There's a lot of change going on, so that's really what drew me in.
Wonderful. So I'd like to introduce now Jessica Brennan from Amazon, who's going to be leading our next skills workshop.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here today. So as mentioned, my name is Jess and I have been with Amazon for 4 years now, and for the last 2 years have been in the student programs team. So our team is responsible for recruitment of graduate and interns across EMEA. So the reason why I'm here today is to talk to you a bit more about internship opportunities and possible graduate opportunities that we have at Amazon, and we're going to do a bit of a skills workshop on our coding. I think it's also important to note, I'm really passionate about DEI. I have worked in different recruitment teams, and before moving into the SDE team, I recruited in kind of HR and recruiting. So that was very female heavy, whereas in the SDE team, it's predominantly not necessarily that STEM population, it is quite male dominant. So I want to encourage you the opportunities that we have, how you can upskill on your coding, etc., and explore and encourage you to look at those opportunities. So in terms of technical roles that we hire for, so software development engineers, data engineers, business intelligence engineers, etc. And we hire not only in the UK, but for all of EMEA. So that's 18 plus different countries. And equally, you'll have heard, hopefully, of Amazon, but within Amazon, we have lots of different business areas. So things like AWS, Prime Video, consumer, which will be things like Alexa Ring, devices, etc. So we hire for all of those teams across a range of different countries. And in terms of what we look for, so specifically with our technical roles, we're looking for people that are enrolled in bachelor's or master's degrees in computer science, computer engineering or related fields. Currently, we're looking for people that are due to graduate between 2025 and 2026. And with our technical opportunities, when it comes to coding, we're not looking for a specific programming language. What we want you to do is work in your preferred language so that you're set up for success, but you should be familiar with the syntax of languages such as Java, C++, or Python. And in terms of the opportunities that we offer, my key thing for you is that you apply for roles that you're actually interested in and match your skill set as well. Really important. And equally, with internship opportunities, it's a learning experience. We're not expecting you to come with the full package and have loads of experience, but it's also the opportunity for you to learn more about organisations and more about what you want to do in your future career. So in terms of, sorry, I'm a slide behind. So in terms of our timelines, specifically within Amazon, so generally our hiring begins around August time, where we ask you to complete your application. And then for our technical roles, we ask you to complete an online assessment. So the online assessment is what I'm going to go through with you in more detail in our next slide. Then from September time, we will invite you to attend interviews. So our interviews are generally virtual because your interviewer could be based in any of our countries across EMEA. Then following on from your interview, we share the outcome with you within 5 business working days. So in terms of online resources and the online assessment, so as I've mentioned, as part of our application process, you are asked to complete an online assessment that's to do with your coding. And then the coding and assessment is part of your technical interview as well. So with our online assessment, on the screen, you will see a QR code, and this specifically will take you to a page with all these resources that we've put together just for you today. So in terms of the online application and the online assessment, this tests your coding functions, and it's the same with your technical interview. So the 3 things that we're predominantly looking for are logical and maintainable. So this measures your ability to write maintainable, readable, reusable, and understandable code. Data structures and algorithm. So it measures your ability to choose the most efficient runtime solutions, think about edge cases, etc. And then problem solving. So your ability to take something complex, break it down, identify a solution, and translate that solution into working code. Part of the actual interview is also competency-based questions, specifically around Amazon's leadership principles. But what you'll find is in most interview processes, you'll hear something called the STAR methodology. So STAR methodology is where you prepare examples based on a situation, task, action, and result. So what you did, why you did it, what was the outcome, and what was the result of that. In terms of kind of any preparation for interviews, coding, etc., again, highlighting that you are in education. We are not expecting you to come with years and years of experience, so don't be afraid to utilise part-time work. We've talked about kind of affinity groups and like voluntary work or projects, etc. You know, you can lean on all of those experiences to help you preparing for interviewing. That covers off mainly what I want to discuss today in respect of our online assessments and all of those resources there. So I'm going to take you through to the next slide, which will show you a video and a little bit more about internship opportunities across Amazon.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm David and I'm a software development engineer at Amazon Mexico.
US.
Australia. In Cape Town.
South Africa.
India.
I'm a recent computer science graduate from the University of Cape Town.
I love to do a variety of things like go to the beach, go hiking, or even just go down those typical YouTube rabbit holes.
If I had to choose 3 words to describe myself, I think they would be creative, energetic, and dedicated.
Optimistic, open-minded, and inquisitive.
I decided to join Amazon so that I could jump straight into projects with high visibility, availability, and scale.
At Amazon, you own everything from defining the problem to implementing the solution, operationalizing and supporting it in production. So there is no one single definition of a typical day.
At Amazon, I've been able to work with so much new and innovative technology, particularly in the AWS space. A project I'm particularly proud of is adding a new page in the checkout flow for Amazon Groceries customers.
AWE provides a safe space for women at Amazon, and I worked with them to organize a fireside chat at the University of Cape Town where we could just share our experiences about working in tech.
Prior to the pandemic, I led the Hour of Code initiative in Mexico, which is a program that promotes education in STEM for kids and underrepresented communities.
An affinity group I'm part of at Amazon is called Glamazon. Glamazon provides support for members of the LGBTQIA+ community.
My team is full of amazing people who I'm genuinely so grateful for. They really push for a healthy work environment where we can all learn and grow together.
I truly love working on my team at Amazon, as I feel like they really embrace the whole idea of startup culture, growing, learning, shipping things quickly and iteratively, but at the same time prioritizing a great work-life balance.
My team's also really supportive in my growth at Amazon. I have regular meetings with my manager where we look at ways that I can improve and where I want to be headed.
You can always grow in Amazon.
Thank you so much. That was really great insights, and I'm not sure how many of you are considering an internship with Amazon, but all of the opportunities are available on that QR down code as well. So we are going to head now into our final break, but before we head into the break, I want to talk to you about the competition that we've got running with STEMAZING. So I mentioned earlier that we ran this last year. You've all heard Jessica McCarthy talking about the STEMAZING programme and how it benefited her in terms of confidence, but also shining as a role model and giving back to younger people and going into schools and colleges and inspiring the next generation into STEM. So we have 2 spaces on the STEMAZING Inspiration Academy, which will be starting in the spring of next year. We are requiring, so it's a 4-month program. It sounds like it's long. It's totally possible to do it alongside your studies. The weekly commitment is 2 hours, and you will meet so many mentors and inspiring women at all stages of their career journey. If you'd like to enter the competition, the information that we require is your name, the course, and the year of graduation, and why you want to take part. It doesn't have to be an essay, just a few sentences about why you would like to take part and how you think it might support you. And if you could email that to hello@campusmedia.co.uk, that would be great. Although it's on the screen, we'll also post that in the chat. So all of the details about this competition will be in the chat as well. So we will be announcing the winners on the 3rd of November, so not long to wait, at 1 o'clock. And the course runs, as I said, from March to June in next year, and the weekly commitment is 2 hours. So I'm going to leave that slide on the screen for anybody who would like to enter the competition during the break, and we'll be back soon. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that short break and you found out more about the STEMAZING Inspiration Academy. We had quite a few people last year took part in the academy and really improved their skills for talking and being a mentor to others. So we're moving on to an employer insight session now with the Royal Navy. And I have Sub-Lieutenant Matilda Walker-Dupere.
So afternoon, everyone. I'm Matilda Walker-Dupere, Sub-Lieutenant in the Royal Navy. I know Ma'am spoke earlier about what it's like to be a woman in the Navy. I'm going to focus more on engineering, what the Navy does, and some schemes available to you guys. But first, a bit about me. So I decided to join the Navy when I was quite young. I went to sixth form for engineers in the armed forces, then went on to Newcastle University to study naval architecture. That was through a scheme with the Navy. I then started my initial officer training at BRNC, which is Britannia Royal Naval College. That's about 30 weeks long. Then carried on my phase 2, phase 3 engineering training. And I'm now currently a WE weapon engineer, section officer on HMS Albion. So what does the Royal Navy do? In sort of a simple term, we protect the nation's interests. We do that by preventing conflict, protecting our economy, provide security at sea, humanitarian aid. A lot of what I've done recently is build international partnerships and protect our nation. Which is important because 95% of Britain's economic activity depends on the oceans. Maritime trade is a big thing for our island nation, so the Navy plays a crucial part in protecting those sea routes. But engineering in the Navy, it's not all about being deployed, being at sea. We've got multiple roles outside of your sea job. So operations, that'd be your sea job. We've got capability acquisition, so that's looking at trying to find new, exciting technology that you can then implement into service on our ships and submarines. Operational support, so you're working very closely with the front line, helping sort out their problems if they can't do it whilst they're away. Policy, that's a lot of what goes on in London and HQ. There's also opportunities to work with the Army, the RAF. You could go into personnel, so that's recruitment, career managing, and just looking after our people. There's a few opportunities to go on loan and work with other nations' militaries. Or you can go into training, whether that be engineering-specific training or officer training. So our branches in general, our main branches are warfare, logistics, and our engineers, and we all work really closely with each other when we're deployed. But I'll go into the engineering. So first we've got our MEs, our marine engineers. They're the ones that look at sort of what makes a ship, make it go, and habitability. So we've got our hull and propulsion, power generation. We've also got habitability, so freshwater sanitation systems. But also we've got to do our own firefighting on board. So our high pressure saltwater system is vital. And if you want to be a marine engineer, you've got to have a mechanical, electrical, electronic, or a marine engineering degree. Then we've got weapons engineer, that's what I am. We're not just weapons, we do weapons ammunition, but also our sensors, so radar, sonar, navigation aids, and communications and information systems, which are just as important. We're not as fussy, so we'll take most STEM degrees. As I said, I was a naval architect, but I've become a weapon engineer. And then finally we have aircraft engineer. So this is working with our fixed-wing jets or rotary helicopters, and you'll more likely be on the carriers, but also you might have a small flight embarked on our destroyers or frigate ships. If you want to become an air engineer, you've got to have a mechanical, electrical, aeronautical degree, but preferably aeronautical. So the offer, this is the sort of perks outside of our pay. So 38 holiday days per year, and people are really encouraged, like we're constantly nagging people to take their leave, go on holiday. A fully funded route through iEng and CEng, and opportunity for professional development. Also got free healthcare and dental care, because we have our own dentists and doctors in the Navy. Non-contributory pension scheme, which might sound quite boring now, but trust me, it's a really good deal, and it's a lot better than some pension schemes out there. An opportunity to take part in adventurous training, which is one of my favourites. I've done paragliding in Bavaria and snowboarding every year. So yeah, really, really good opportunities. Also travelling the world. I've just done a deployment in the Baltic Sea, so I think we had about 8 different countries, and I've been to Arctic Circle. I've got friends that have done Mediterranean trips, or even if you've just gone on loan with a different navy, the opportunity for travelling and seeing the world is a lot better in the Navy than the other 2 armed forces, and it is what attracts a lot of people to the Navy. So some of the schemes we offer. This is if you finished uni, you've got your degree, and you want to join the Navy, you'll be a direct entry officer. So depending on which type of engineer you want to become is what degree you need. But the particular perks on this one is your £27,000 golden hello. So that's what all engineers get upon joining. So you'll start on £27,000 a year training pay, but that will go up to 33. I've been in 3 years now. I'm on nearly 40, so it goes up quite frequently each year. Defence STEM undergraduate scheme. This is like what I did, but it's a newer, better version, because you get your tuition fees paid for, and you get £5,000 a year. You don't have to start that as soon as you start uni. If you're in your 2nd or 3rd year, you can still apply for this and just get it for those last couple of years. Whilst you're at uni, every week you'd go to Earn You. That's a chance to find out about the different branches or different roles within that engineering you'll be doing later on. If you guys have any questions, feel free to come see us at our stall just next door after this. But thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Matilda. There was questions coming in. I was literally just about to ask you them, but they're in the chat. So if you want to answer those questions that have come in via the chat, that would be fantastic. So we're moving on to our next session now, which is the panel discussion with our careers advisors. So I would like to invite all of our careers advisor spokespeople down to the seating. So we have Sophie Biney from GSK, Malaika Jamil from VolkerRail, who we had a little bit from earlier, Jusia Hamid from UK Atomic Energy Authority, Michelle Russell from ENSAR, and Abinia Krishnamurthy from LSBU, actually. She's a PhD student. We're all jumbled up in our logos on there, but it's fine. We've seen, obviously, we've been introduced to a few of you already, but if we can start with Jusia, we're going to have to do a shifty around with the microphones to just give an introduction about yourself and your company, and then we'll go down.
Hi everyone, so my name's Gusia. I am a Early Careers Advisor at UK AEA, and we are the government body that do fusion research. Currently working on the graduate scheme, so I support people right the way through from recruitment all the way to the end of their first 2 years with us on their graduate scheme.
Hello again, Michelle Russell from ENSAR, promoting the Routes into Rail platform and answering any questions that you might have about rail and rail entry careers.
Hi, I'm Abhinaya Krishnamurthy from LSBU. I'm a second year PhD student. I'm a part of LCE, which is London Centre for Energy Engineering. So here we research about global energy problems like solar cells, hydrogen production, CO2 reduction, and so on. If you have any questions regarding PhD, academia, you can just feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.
I'm Sophie Biney, Global Director for Emerging Talent Programs at GSK. I specifically work for the Digital and Tech Organisation, so I'm here to talk about anything anyone might be interested in with regard to our Future Leaders Programme, and we also run internships and apprenticeships as well.
Hi again, Malaika Jamil, Engineering Apprentice. I'm in my second year of my degree. If you've got any questions about apprenticeships, just feel free to ask.
Wonderful. So actually throughout the whole event, we've had lots of questions come in that I've been saving for this particular session because they are more relevant. I'm going to start off with a really easy one, and we get it every year, is do I get to choose where I'm located, and do you have multiple offices where we could be based?
Yep, so I got to choose which project to go on. I was asked what specific discipline I wanted to go on, which was civil engineering. I was put in the Hope Valley project at Sheffield, and everything's really easy. Everyone's asking how you are throughout the whole process, ensuring that you've got accommodation if need be, and making sure that you can travel there quite easily as well. So yeah, you're allowed to choose. They also based the uni quite close, so Sheffield Hallam University, so it was really accessible for me as well.
So at GSK, we run our Digital and Tech FLP globally, but if you apply for a particular country, you would have conversations before you join in terms of what your interests are and what your skills are, and that would feed into the decision about the role that you would have. We would also keep you involved in terms of where you would want to be based. For the UK, the vast majority of people are based in head office in London anyway, and there are some roles in Stevenage or Ware. And then for subsequent rotations, you would apply for the role that you're interested in, and that would also determine where you would be based. So a large proportion of it is about the role that you want to do that would dictate where you'd be based.
So in PhD, it's more independent. You choose to do what you want to do. Basically, you apply for a particular project. So whichever you are interested in, I'm a material scientist. I'm interested in making materials and applying those materials for different applications. So I applied for a particular position and I got through it. I'm a fully funded student here. So it's basically you do what you want to do in the lab. So it's not that nobody's there to ask you, they will. But you have that liberty and freedom to explore around different techniques, different characterization tools. You can apply on whichever you want. It's easy.
I think across rail, you would apply for the role in a named location, so you would know that at the forefront, and then as you progress through, you get to choose where you might want to go in terms of a promoted role or secondments, but those are all publicly available when you're applying through the website or the application process. I think in rare cases you might be directed to go somewhere, but that would be on a needs basis.
So majority of our roles are based in Culham in Oxfordshire. We do also have an office in Rotherham, but that just depends on what department you're working with as to whether or not you would be able to work from Rotherham. But even if you're based in Rotherham, you'd still be having to come to Culham for the things that are graduate scheme related. We do also do quite a few collaborations. So we're part of the ETA project as well. So we do currently have one graduate who's on secondment in the south of France, and they are looking to expand to have more opportunities in the south of France as well. So it just depends, and you can apply for those through the organisation. So it just depends whether or not that's something that's of interest to you.
Great, thank you for getting that one out of the way nice and early. I just wanted to explain as well, Abhinaya, we've got you joining the Careers Advisor panel today because, again, lots of you have registered. I mentioned earlier, you're all at different stages of your academic learning. However, we have a real large amount of candidates have registered who are doing a postgraduate, and I think very often we, or should I say I assume, that once you finish your degree, that's it, you go and get a job. But actually, you're here to represent the fact that you don't need to get a job straight away if you have got a passion in learning and you want to further that. So if you do have questions about higher and further education, once you've done your undergraduate degree or a postgraduate, please pop them in the chat as well and we can get those answered. So moving on to our next question. Across your businesses, why is it important to have women in the engineering and technology roles? And whilst we're answering this one actually as well, another question that popped up was, do you only have roles within the engineering and technology space? Or are there opportunities that people can go into further afield across different departments?
So I personally think it's really important having women in engineering. I think with women you get a lot of different perspectives, and in all honesty I think they're a bit more creative. But yeah, so I think it's very important, but I don't think any certain job role is restricted with what gender you are, or if you're female or male, it doesn't matter at all. I know quite a lot of my colleagues have senior roles and they're women as well. There's also male staff as well, but I think seeing more women there, you feel a lot more comfortable as well, and you do really see that you don't have to be male to have such a higher job role. You can be any age, any gender, and I think that's what's really important.
Yeah, so one thing that I probably should have mentioned when I did my intro, but GSK stands for GlaxoSmithKline, and most people who know us will know us under the previous name of GlaxoSmithKline, but we go by GSK now. And as a pharmaceutical company, we have a lot that we do in terms of the engineering space. If you think about the way that we create our medicines and vaccines, if we think about our production sites, our supply chain, as well as my area, the digital and tech function, we're such a large organisation that it wouldn't make sense for us to just focus on having men in our engineering or tech space. And we do, to your first question, we have roles available in both the engineering and the tech space. And so in order for us to be able to be effective in what we do and the way that we do what we do, it's important to have as much diversity across all diversity characteristics, including obviously gender as well.
So according to me, PhD is diverse. It doesn't have any discrimination between sex, age, or anything. So it's like, I also think women are important for PhD and for other researchers, especially in academia, because there is more role. PhD is not only studies. I consider it as a job. Many of my colleagues consider it as a job. So you have to plan, you have to organize, you have to do lots and lots of role. So it's not only studying and doing experiments in the lab. So according to me, women should do it, and women are pretty organizing. I'm not taking double standards here, so pretty women are organizing, planning, so I think it's necessary.
I think diversity is important because diversity of demographic brings diversity of thought, and lots of different skill sets are brought to the organisation as well to help improve problem solving, and I think creativity adds a different dimension to the problems you're trying to solve. So I think it's really important from a rail sector perspective that we continue to encourage that.
I'm going to have to agree with everything that's been said because what I was going to say has been said. We are fortunate within UKAEA. We do have some females that are in quite senior positions, and I think having females right the way through from our graduate scheme, apprenticeships, all the way through to senior positions, it does mean that we are able to also attract more females into the organisation, and hopefully retain more females along within our organisation. With regards to roles, we do have roles both in science and engineering, and we also do have non-technical roles as well. So if you're looking to get into the industry but haven't done an engineering degree, we do also have things like procurement. This year we also took on finance, sustainability grads, and this year we're also launching the introduction of our project management grads as well. So some really exciting opportunities. But I would have to echo what someone's already said, having that diverse panel of people within the organisation, having females, it just means that your teams are diverse and there are opportunities for better working and having some more creativity and having extra skill sets within the team, really, bridging some of those gaps within the team.
Yeah, I would like to echo whoever it was, I think it was you actually, who said that creative thoughts, and we are all different, but men and women think differently as well. And if you have a problem, and we know engineering and tech is a lot of problem solving, having a diverse mix of men and women approaching that problem with a solution that fits both men and women as well, maybe it's from a safety perspective, having that considered approach for all human beings is far better than it being full of a workforce just of men, for example. So echo all of those points. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just opening up the panel. So how do your organisations support women to thrive within their role? So do you have specific community groups or mentors? How do you support women to thrive?
So within VolkerRail, everyone is really caring, whether it be men or women. My team really supports me and they really put me forward for various different opportunities. I started working with the civil engineering team, but now I'm attending and presenting senior executive meetings as well. And a lot of opportunities are put forward for me. I'm always getting involved in everything as well. We take mental health into a lot of consideration as well. And we had a huge Step Up for Safety event where I think about 2/3 of people signed up to be mental health ambassadors, because that's really important within within our community. So everyone is just really supporting and caring and really support you through your journey.
From a GSK perspective, there are a number of different interventions that we have that are available to support women, and some of them are for women specifically. If you saw Dalia's presentation earlier, she had a slide up that had a number of various different initiatives that we run, but also there are initiatives that are across GSK that are beneficial specifically for women. We have a diverse, I can't remember what it's called, Accelerated Difference Programme, which has a number of different diverse characteristic focuses, including one which is for ethnicity and one which is for women specifically. We have lots of different town halls and Let's Talk sessions where we have female leaders in the organisation who are intentionally put at the forefront in order for all of us to be able to see the representation across the board. We have a women's leadership network that is global and has lots of local chapters across different markets that enable people to get together. And they are heavily attended by allies as well. So men are welcome to take part in these spaces and be vocal about the fact that they specifically want to push forward and make sure that women have appropriate representation, appropriate opportunities, appropriate chances to develop, etc. And even right down to the level of your managers, many times women will find that their managers are specifically reaching out to them to offer them opportunities to focus on their own development, specifically recognizing that there are oftentimes women who hold themselves back because they don't necessarily feel that like the opportunities that are available generally are for them, or because they feel like the men in the room will often put their name forward first. So there is a lot that goes on in terms of really intentionally making sure that there are opportunities for women that are pushed forward for them.
So at LSBU, the team is very supporting, especially my research team is very supporting. And even in LCE, everyone are supportive, even whether it be the supervisor, we have a mentor, we have a chairperson, we also have an internal examiner. Everyone are very supportive and encouraging. So it's not like you always work in the laboratory, you get tired and you have all sort of problems. And they're always supportive to, to make you feel comfort and to do the work on time and stuff.
Yeah, across rail, there's lots of opportunities to support women progress and also different things to make the working day easier. So sort of flexibility, job share schemes are much more high profile these days to make those opportunities more readily available. And I think it's important to recognise the mentoring programmes that exist across the sector as well. Each organisation tends to have support networks, again, depending on the size, but if they're smaller organisations, they tend to feed into the broader sector programmes. But there's plenty of support out there. Sometimes you just need to dig a little bit deeper to find it, because rail being dominated by men, these things aren't always at the forefront.
So at UKAA, I suppose what we do to support women, we do have our women's network. We also do have a mentoring scheme. I'm going to look up my notes quickly. We also offer things like shadowing and upskilling. We also offer hybrid working, flexible working. And I have to admit, I'm still early in my careers, but this is definitely one of the friendliest places I've worked. It doesn't matter who you try and approach, no matter how senior they are. You can just go and have a chat to anyone within the organisation, and everyone's very welcoming. In terms of supporting young people, we do also offer drop-in clinics. We have a very open door policy within our early careers team. We do drop-in virtual clinics. We also do drop-in breakfast, just as a way to make sure that everyone feels like they can come and talk to us, no matter who they are really anyway.
Wonderful. That's fantastic to hear. And I think that there's a lot of fear of, well, will I fit in? How will it be like compared? And we heard earlier on the student panel discussion, it's a big jump, right? From being a student to then being in a graduate job. So knowing that you have these support communities is really reassuring. So we've got a question in here about how to stand out in your application, whether it's on your CV or via your ATS systems. How, other than just grades, how can somebody really stand out? Those of you that actually look at applications, what do you look for?
I'll go first on this one. I think it's about making it personal. And promoting something that you're really, really proud of, something that you've done, something that you've achieved. And I know earlier in an earlier presentation, the STAR framework was mentioned, and I think that's a good place to start. So what was the situation? What did you do about it? What was the outcome, and what happened as a result of that outcome, and how that made you feel in terms of that level of achievement would be a standout characteristic for me.
From my perspective for GSK, I think that considering that we're an organisation with such a big purpose in terms of helping ordinary human beings across the world with their personal health, I think if you have a specific desire to work for GSK, it should be very easy for you to be able to explain why that is. The vast majority of people will either have healthcare issues in their own life or a loved one who has healthcare issues, and as I say, it should be easy for you to be able to explain why that drives you to want to work for an organisation like GSK. Additionally, for our digital and tech roles, we don't require people necessarily to have lots of experience within the digital and tech space, but it is important for you to be able to demonstrate very clearly why this is what you want to get into. Additionally, you don't necessarily need to have studied computer science. It obviously helps if you have, or a similar role, but if you're able to demonstrate why, having studied engineering, for example, you have then intentionally started making moves towards being geared towards a tech role. Again, these are the kind of things that show that you have the passion to work for our organisation, and you have already started implementing moves to work within the digital and tech space.
So I think Sophie hit the nail on the head there, really, about making sure that when you're making your application, you show that you're passionate about the organisation that you're applying for. So I actually come from a recruitment background. I did 6 years in agency recruitment, and the amount of times that you could clearly tell that somebody had just hit apply to every vacancy that they had seen, and that's the people that you don't pick up the phone, you don't call, but the people that had actually taken time to tailor their CV, that there was a reason why they'd applied for that particular position. I know it's long-winded to literally tailor your CV to every single application, but it really does show that you've gone the extra mile and done your research, and that you really do want to work for the organisation. In terms of sort of like more tailored towards UKAEA, so our graduate scheme, it very much is a learning role. We do sort of push to our line managers that the graduates are in a learning position. They're not expected to know everything, and they are here to learn and develop. So showing a passion for obviously wanting to utilise the graduate scheme and learn and develop your career whilst you're on that graduate scheme will definitely go a long way as well.
Thank you, and I'm just going to go into extra depth on that question actually, and I think I'm going to throw this open to the whole panel. But where would you recommend is the best first point of call to find out more about your company, not necessarily just the roles, but your company? Obviously, we're bombarded now with every social media, all the channels, all the websites. What would you say is the best place to go and look and find out more?
I think, because I've obviously been through the whole recruitment process, for me it was just actually sitting down thinking about what I wanted to do. And when I knew it was engineering I wanted to go in, I just remember looking on the government website. I found lots of vacancies which I thought were quite appealing, and I would search up on the internet the company name, just what they do, what they offer. I also remember attending quite a lot of events, so like careers events, and they were really helpful as well because I was able to ask people who work for the company a lot of questions as well. But yeah, I think it's definitely, when I didn't find an answer, it'd be really worth just emailing in to see if they could possibly provide an answer as well. Sometimes YouTube videos help as well, but I think the internet is a really big place to help you find more about the company. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, so I'd agree entirely about the internet being a good source as well as being able to speak with people. GSK have a platform called Connector that we have set up specifically for this purpose. So it enables people who are interested in an early talent role to find out much more about GSK, what we do, what the programs are. And we also enable people to actually reach out to mentors on Connector to ask specific questions, and then they'll get back to you with an answer to your specific question. I have actually put the link to Connector in the chat before we came up on the panel. I'll do that again just to make sure that it's available for people who might not be able to find it in the chat. But that's one of the best places to find out about our organisation, about our roles, and to connect with people to ask questions. You'll also get a notification when our applications go live as well, so it's perfectly timely for people.
So for PhD application, it's basically you apply on website on LSBU careers, or you personally approach the professor regarding some research projects, or if you are interested in your own research, you can also email the professor stating how passionate you are and what are your goals and what are your objectives, how you want to process it further. So those are things you can do.
So very simply, two things from me: routes into rail as a interest in different types of careers, and secondly, LinkedIn. So look the company up on LinkedIn, see what they've been up to, what's their social media profile, what events are they running, and things like that, to find out as much as you can. I'm going to have to agree. It's company website, it's LinkedIn. The other good thing about LinkedIn is actually once you find out who's interviewing you, you can have a look at their profile, see how they got into their current role as well, which can give you talking points at the interview. The other thing is, and I tried this way back when, so I'm not sure if it still works, is actually on Google you can, when you search, you can type in, you can touch the news tab, and that will bring up any recent news as well. So if you apply to somewhere like UKAEA, obviously being a government body, we are in the news quite often. You know, we have visits from various people within the government, so that's always again another talking point that you've done that research, that you know you've seen it, whether it's been in the news or whether it's been on our LinkedIn. You can say that, you know, oh yeah, saw that Rishi Sunak came and saw you, how did that go?
Thank you. And I'd also like to stick in my favour for LinkedIn as well. I think as well, lots of organisations, especially you guys, you have the platform there for people to ask questions via LinkedIn, and somebody will come back to you as well. Also, Instagram and YouTube. I think lots of organisations like to share candid videos from real people within the organisations doing real jobs as well. And it's great to get that first-hand insights from other social channels. I have a very specific PhD question for you here. Advice for an ageing PhD student. Do the normal pathways of entry scheme apply?
Yeah, probably. You can go in traditional route, or it's like you do your bachelor's, you do your master's, and then you can apply for your PhD. Or if you want, you can work for some time in industry, and then you can switch to a PhD in academia. Or there's an option for collaborative PhD, where industry and academia together work for a single project. So it's possible.
Okay, so again, I only did an undergraduate degree. So the process then would be to undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD, or undergraduate work in industry for a number of years, and then apply for a PhD and do it that way. Great.
Or if you have good score in your bachelor's, so you can approach your supervisor. Yeah.
Really, that's great to know. And also for apprenticeships, if you already have a degree, can you apply for a degree apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I go to university with quite a lot of older students as well. And everyone's really supporting. You can apply to an apprenticeship at no age. You can get a degree at no age. There's quite a lot of older people in my class. So, yeah, it's open to everyone. And I think another important thing to note is if, for example, you've been working with a company for a while and you're, you know, in your mid-30s, they will put money towards you, join in a new course at university, go into more further development in your education. So, yeah, it's 100% possible to get an apprenticeship at any age.
And just to add on to that, actually, if you could let me know if your organisations do offer sponsored apprenticeships, and if you do, would you look at somebody who, would not look at, but would you consider a candidate who's already got a degree onto a sponsored degree apprenticeship if it was in something completely different?
Yeah, from GSK's perspective, absolutely. Certainly we do sponsor people through their apprenticeships, studies, and also give them the work experience as well. And we do often have apprenticeships at different levels, including degree apprenticeships, which we would absolutely welcome applications from people from a different background to what they are applying to. We also do level 7 apprenticeships, which are for those who are doing masters and up. I don't know exactly what the levels are for the different levels of qualification, but then also, as you mentioned, there are people who already work in the organisation and want to get additional training. So we also sponsor people through their apprenticeships once they're already working for us and decide that they want to top up on their education as well.
Yeah, I think as long as it was a completely unrelated field, that would be supported. I think if you've got a degree and you want to do a degree apprenticeship in something that's too similar, the question might be asked why. So I think it would be advisable if you were looking to do something completely different, and would support the point that there's no age limit on a degree apprentice.
We also really encourage upskilling. So if there is a course that you want to do that you can do via an apprenticeship, whether it's a degree or a separate course, then we would completely encourage it. I'm actually doing one myself, so I'm doing the CIPD course as an apprenticeship, and I just recently started that. So yeah, really do encourage everyone to do as much upskilling as possible.
Great, and we heard earlier from the Royal Navy on their sponsored degree and apprenticeship route in as well. So please refer back to the chat in there, or maybe somebody could post that in. And so we have a very specific question for GSK. Sorry, Sophie. Could you explain what type of work tech grads are doing within GSK?
Wow. Bearing in mind I'm not a tech grad, there's a limit to how much level of detail I have. But I guess probably what I'll do is explain the structure of the programme and the way that we define the different types of rotations people can do. So it's a 2-year programme, and people go through 3 rotations of 8 months long each. And the intention is that over the course of the different rotations, people cover as many of the key capabilities as possible. See if I can remember them. So at the moment, we're focusing on data and analytics. We're focusing on cybersecurity, AI, ML, product management, and also cloud. So across your rotational program on the FLP, you will have rotations that cover those capabilities. There are also other roles that are not necessarily specifically in those skill sets that people often do if it does make sense in terms of the skills that they need to develop in order to be the best candidate for the role that they want to secure for offboarding. But those are the key areas that we focus on in terms of the rotations.
And I would also like to add another question. Sorry, you're very popular on this panel. We had a huge amount of science students, biosciences, biological engineering students as well. Are there specific programs at GSK for those degrees?
Yeah, 100%. So I know that we're here talking about engineering and tech, but actually we are absolutely a pharmaceutical company. And I should give the caveat that my area, again, is digital and tech, so I don't know all of the details, but 100% all of those subject areas are the kinds of ones that I would expect to see people coming through for some of our lab programs, for some of our research and development programs, for some of our site manufacturing programs, for example. So definitely, I would say anybody who has any of those degree backgrounds, and certainly the ones that I've not mentioned are specific to digital and tech, do take a look at either the careers pages of our website or the connector platform, as I mentioned earlier, and you should be able to very specifically be able to see the kind of roles that are available and the kinds of degree backgrounds that we're looking for people applying for those roles.
Wonderful. I don't know if anyone else has got anything to add from a biosciences and biomedical engineering backgrounds, but I thought that would be quite fitting for GSK. We have a question in about imposter syndrome. We get this every year. I suffer from imposter syndrome, this time every single year when I know I've got to go up onto a stage and talk in front of hundreds of people. But how do you as organisations, right from the assessment centres, the interview stage, within the job, how do you support not only women, men have imposter syndrome too, you know, we're all faced with it. But is that something that as an organisation you can support your employees with?
I think being quite young, it is quite patronising, talking on stages and going to interview stages. But I think not just talking in an organisation point of view, but just, I guess practice does make perfect. Like I remember never doing an interview before, and just practicing with my sister at home, it was just so beneficial for me, because when I went to actually going into the interview, I felt like I'd already knew half the people there. And I think if you're ever struggling with anything, don't ever not talk to, employees, and, always ask for advice, because they're there to help you. I think that's what I'm always reminded in this apprenticeship scheme, is to just ask questions and make sure that you're comfortable. Everyone asks me every morning how I'm doing, making sure that I'm doing well, and if I need any support, never be shy, and always speak up when I need to. So I think, just speak up if you're not comfortable with anything, and make sure that, you're not just hiding away, and do voice out if, you do need any support as well.
I think there are probably two things that I'd say to address the imposter syndrome question. I think the first one is, and I've been sitting here trying to remember the magazine or website that I found it in, but I read an article recently questioning whether imposter syndrome is always actually imposter syndrome, because to my mind, imposter syndrome is often an internal thing about whether you feel that you are good enough for whatever role it is that you're doing. But sometimes it's actually about other people who are around you making you feel as though you're actually in a place where you belong. And sometimes the answer is no, in which case it's not actually about you anyway, it's about the people who are around you. I think the second thing that I wanted to say sort of leads off from that, in as much as if we think about the fact that the majority of the people that we're speaking to today are at the beginning of their careers, there is a limit to how much experience that you have in the area that you're going into. And one of the best ways to be able to overcome feeling as though you are not good enough or you don't belong is to ask questions. It's the one time in your career where everybody should be expecting you to ask some of the most basic questions. And the more questions that you ask, the more answers that you receive, and therefore the more you fill in those gaps that you feel that you have in your knowledge. I would also say, think about the way that you ask questions. Once you've received one answer or one piece of information, connect it to the next question that you're asking, so that it's very obvious that you're looking to connect the dots and understand where there are linkages, and start to build a bigger picture in your mind in a way that allows other people to be able to recognize how good you are, which then relates back to the first point. Once they're able to see how good you are, it makes it less easy for them to make you feel that you don't belong there.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So during PhD, everybody thinks they have an imposter syndrome, because you have self-doubts, you have, I can say zero of self-love, and all sort of doubts, you keep getting it because you compare your research, your work with other people around, other researcher. It's like a battle between you and your research. So for this, there are lots and lots of support from the mentor and supervisor. You can always ask questions. You can always be very true to yourself, and you can always be open and ask the faculties around or even your colleagues. They are very helpful, supportive. I myself have got so much support from them.
I would just say two things: reflect and then be confident. So I've got 3 apprentices in my team, and to try and get them to be more confident, I expose them to situations which might make them feel a little uncomfortable to start with, but they're never on their own. I don't leave them in that situation on their own. So I expose them to things that are new and different, and then I get them to reflect on that experience, and then hopefully in turn that builds confidence as they move forward in their career.
So we actually recently had an external trainer come in to support with some workshops on imposter syndrome, and the same training provider will actually be coming in a couple of weeks to do some building resilience workshops with us. And the feedback we've had from the graduates and the apprentices that have done that course is that it was actually quite helpful. And I think off the back of that, what we are looking to do to support people coming into the organisation is add in sort of engagement sessions during the onboarding process, so that actually we can start supporting them earlier with that sort of thing. We're quite fortunate, about 20% of our grads actually have worked with us before on summer industrial placements, but they do still suffer from imposter syndrome, so we do try and sort of help as much as possible. And I think as the early careers team, we have noticed that young people, there are sort of a few more confidence issues cropping up since COVID at least. So we are trying to put on extra training to support them with those. So yeah, imposter syndrome and building resilience was the first ones that we sort of looked at, but we're continuing to look at what else we can do to support them.
That's really great to hear, actually. I think COVID has a lot to answer for lots of other reasons as well. And I really like that point about surrounding yourself with people who are going to tell you positive things about what you're doing right. And I think that's really important as well. And throughout this event, we've touched on mentorship and the importance of having a mentor, but equally, importance of surrounding yourself with positive colleagues who you can use as a sounding board and chat about it, because imposter syndrome, is it real, or is it, we're just having a wobble, So, but it's great to hear that there's so many supportive things in place at all of your organisations. So we are coming into the final questions. Sorry, So we're looking now for some insights into the social life. We did touch on work-life balance earlier, but social life and community within your companies, not necessarily work community, but the fun community and how important that is, and how you breed that culture within your organisations.
So I have both the social life when I go to university and when I'm working as well. Even though a lot of the colleagues I work with are a lot older, we all still, have a laugh. It's not always just serious. We do tend to either go out for lunch sometimes, or, we try to keep it as informal as possible, because it just makes everything a lot easier to do. And it's such a nice feeling when you're surrounded with people, who you really enjoy spending time with. When it comes to university, I'm there all week, so I've made a couple of friends within my company, but also other companies as well. And I think I would never, disregard them, and I would always try and make time for them, because these are people who I'm spending a lot of my time with. So I think always branch out and make sure, you're not trying to keep yourself away from other students at university or at work, because having that important life balance it's really important, because you don't want to wear yourself out at all. But yeah, I would just try and get involved in as much stuff as possible, whether that be uni or work.
I've been at GSK now for about 4.5 years, and almost every large-scale event that I go to, conferences in-house or town halls or whatever, I will end up meeting somebody who has had a very long career at GSK. I'm talking 20 plus, 30 plus years regularly. Yeah, I know. Oh God, she said. Oh God, I agree. And one of the things that I always pick up from the conversations that they have with me, and actually also with each other, is the fact that they always have a really big network of people that they have worked with, either on an official capacity in terms of them having been in their team, or they've worked with them on projects, or they've connected with them during volunteer days, or they have bumped into them regularly in the canteen and built up relationships that way. And I think that's one of the big things that I've noticed about GSK as an organisation. People are always connecting with each other internally to build those relationships that often have nothing to do with the day-to-day of what they do at work. The head office in UK is in Brentford, which is West London towards Heathrow, and it's under a flyover somewhere with a dual carriageway in front of it. And there are 2 quite small pubs nearby, so there isn't that much of an after-work social culture. The majority of people who come in, they either drive in or they have a relatively long commute. But next year, head office is moving into central London. So we'll be based at Tottenham Court Road, close to Oxford Circus. So I expect that's going to change. And I'm worried about my pocket, quite frankly, because I have other friends at other organisations in the area who I'm expecting to meet up with a lot. But I'm sure that's going to have a big impact on head office.
So, PhD and social life. Okay, the laughter says the answer, I think. So it's quite hard to balance the personal life and social life. But in our research team, I'm very grateful to be in the team. So we balance between work and life, social life, personal life, and everything. So we try to meet up for coffees during morning, like monthly once at least. We all meet together and talk about everything, not only research, like what's happening in your life and all sort of things. And at least monthly once we try to go for a dinner or some party around. So it's like we also celebrate our even the tiniest achievement, like if your paper gets published or if your paper even gets accepted from some journal, so we have some sort of happiness. And immediately we're like, okay, let's stop everything, just go have some fun. So that's how we tend to have work-life balance in the culture.
And I'm going to wrap it up there. Sorry, you were probably going to go into how raucous the social life is in your organisations as well. Thank you so much for your time. We have had a lot of questions coming in on the chat and we just haven't had time to get through them all. Lots of questions about, do you promote your schemes and STEM opportunities to GCSE students? The answer is yes. And more so now than ever before as well. There's a huge importance now on reaching out to younger audiences to make them aware of STEM opportunities because they're often not the traditional route via primary and secondary education. And or I'd also like to say, if we didn't answer your question, I'm truly sorry, but on the page, if you're viewing it from the campus media page, you'll be able to scroll down and you can see information about every one of the employers that has supported the event today on there, and a link to their careers pages, and also the GSK have got a specific link on there for the Tech Futures Digital and Tech Future Leaders, sorry, memory issues going on. I had hoped to get back to the podium to end the session, but I will carry on from here. I would like to say a huge thank you to every single person that has registered to find out more about the event, has attended today, whether you could attend it all or just part of it, that's fine. Thanks to the amazing tech team that we have here, everything is filmed and we'll be sharing the recording with you after the event. I'd like to thank LSBU for hosting us today. It's been fantastic. I love this lecture theatre. For those of you joining us virtually, it's a fantastic state-of-the-art lecture theatre in a brand new hub building. And I'd like to thank our employer partners who, without you, we just would not be able to do this event. At Campus Media, our whole point is to be able to run free events for students to take part in from all backgrounds, from all levels of education, and level the playing field for everybody to take part. So I think that's a wrap for Women in Engineering and Technology 2023. Thank you so much for being a part of it, and look out in your emails for the recording and further information from our fabulous employers that we've had here today. Thank you.